Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Becoming a God starts by copying talent skills. Chapter 61. Don't you continue to attack. Since you don't do it, then I will do it. Seeing the two of them hesitatingly refused to take action, Lin Yan also showed a boring look. It was not easy for someone to hit him. He didn't dare to attack him before he even started the show. After hearing Lin Yan said that they wanted to take action, the two of them were shocked and prepared a defensive posture, but there was no use for eggs. As soon as Lin Yan's voice fell, he disappeared into the vision of the two of them. When they appeared next time, they were already behind them. Feeling the breath behind them, the two immediately kicked them out like a back. However, Lin Yan jumped up and directly avoided the counterattack, and then kicked them out one by one in the air. After all, Lin Yan had reached the talent level, and his strength had far surpassed the disciples who hadn't reached the limit of these two disciples. Even if Lin Yan didn't make a heavy hand, under his blow, the two felt that they had been hit hard and couldn't get up. Seeing that Lin Yan had dealt with the two of them, Miu and Shirahama Kenichi also walked over. Why don't you think so? You will come to us for trouble. After all, Mei Yu knew that Lin Yan was already a master, so she couldn't help but complain about the two people on the ground who were weaker than her. Hey, don't be happy too early. We are only ordered to deal with you disciples, and our master who can't help but has gone to Liangshanpo with dozens of masters. Hearing what the unnamed male disciple of Kanshin Tishiliu said, the three Lin Yan looked at each other. After all, the master of their Kanshin Tishiliu couldn't think about it before going to the group of monster masters in Liangshanpo. Trouble. Even the current Lin Yan can only barely support for a period of time when the masters of the expert do not use their full strength, and Lin Yan himself is much stronger than the average expert. Thinking of this, Lin Yan and Mei Yu looked at each other. Then they folded their hands together in a silent mourning for the masters who had lost their hearts and minds, hoping that they could walk out intact. After finishing the two disciples, Lin Yan asked Shirahama Kenichi to take the two with him. When they returned to Liangshanpo, as expected, a bunch of people in black were already lying at the door of Liangshanpo. Master and seniors. The two people who were tied up by Kenichi Shirahama's roots saw the masters and masters who had been knocked down at Liangshanpo's gate and felt despair in their hearts. Unexpectedly, their remnant heart and body Shiliu would be planted here like this. They are finished, no one will come to save them. Thinking of this, the two Kanshin Shiliu disciples who had a good opinion of each other looked at each other, then leaned their heads together, weeping silently, as if to enjoy the last part of their lives. Seeing the desperation of these two people, Lin Yan's mouth twitched, and he couldn't figure out what was in their heads. Why did they suddenly become so sad? After entering Liangshanpo, Elder was standing in the clearing with a serious face. However, when they saw Lin Yan and the three come back, they immediately smiled at them. Elder, nothing happened to Liangshanpo. Lin Yan glanced around and saw no other experts, but since Elder was standing here, it means that the attackers did not threaten them at all. Haha, it's okay, it's just that a group of rats rushed in and made the house tattered. Ah, Grandpa, why don't you solve them earlier? How can Liangshanpo still have money to repair the house? As Elder pointed to the house, Miwa also looked over, and when she saw the signs of destruction everywhere on the main house, her mind exploded. Ah, Mei Yu, don't be angry, the group of people are still lying outside, you can go to them for compensation after Chu Yu cures them. In response to Miyu's dissatisfaction, Elder, the ultimate granddaughter, suddenly became stunned, and quickly comforted Miyu in a low voice. Lin Yan and Bai Bin on one side glanced at each other and sighed. The people with the remnant heart and body were taken to the clinic of Misakigoshi Temple Chuyu for treatment. After the treatment, not only did they have to pay for the expensive treatment, but Miwa and the fellows threatened to pay for the repair of the house. How can it be a tragic word? However, the people who were almost stripped of their broken hearts and bodies were not embarrassed by Liangshanpo too much. Although they are chess pieces belonging to the dark, Liangshanpo belongs to the living fist. After all, even if it is an enemy, they will not play assassins, otherwise they are indistinguishable from the dark. In the next few days, dark chess pieces continued to rush towards Liangshanpo. Of course, the dark side also knows that Liangshanpo is not easy to deal with. The real target is actually Liangshanpo's disciple. The reason for this is that after Ogata Ikensai returned to the darkness with Asamiya Ryodo, he revealed to them that Liang Shanbo had re-enrolled his disciples. Therefore, in order to understand Lin Yan's strength, the dark side deliberately sent a wave of chess pieces to test it out. On weekends, after a long lost rest, Shirahama Kenichi rarely took a trip home, while Lin Yan accompanied Meiyu to the streets to buy things. It's hard to go shopping with a girl, not to mention a diligent and thrifty girl like Miu, who spent 6.7 hours shopping. The sun was about to go down before she bought everything. Fortunately, Lin Yan is very strong now. If he was still an ordinary person, he might really not be able to handle it. With large bags all over his body and a bunch of bags in his hands, Lin Yan walked slowly back to Liang Shanpo behind Meiyu in this way. Do you really make me wait? When the two approached Liang Shanpo, a voice came from nearby. Then in front of them, a figure suddenly fell from the sky, still lightly spinning a few times in the air, and fell to the ground very easily. Wow, what a great gymnastics show! Lin Yan suddenly put down the bag in her hand, then clapped excitedly, showing an expression like seeing an idol, and Meiyu next to her was shocked. She didn't know what Lin Yan suddenly felt nervous. Quote. On the other hand, the man who just came to the perfect gymnastic action of turning and landing in the air is quite speechless. He just wants to be handsome, not really here to perform gymnastics for people. Ahem, my name is Yi Shang, this time I am here specifically for you, Lin Yan, and Fenglin Si Meiyu. The visitor introduced himself, first glanced at Lin Yan, and then stared directly at Meiyu. Quote. Lin Yan suddenly got upset. What's the matter? This kid looks down on me. Who still want to rob me? Yi Shang, right, what are you doing here? Hearing Lin Yan's words, Yi Shang moved his gaze away from Meiyu and looked at Lin Yan again. I wanted to come and see the strength of Liang Shanbo's chief disciple, but after meeting her, my goal changed. After speaking, Yi Shang moved directly to Meiyu's side, with a rose that I didn't know where it came from in his mouth, and then looked straight at Meiyu. This beautiful miss, are you interested in being my woman? Quote. Meiyu was stunned, but Lin Yan was out of anger, walked towards Yi Shang, and then directly threw a punch into his face. Oh, how can this attack hit me? Yi Shang escaped Lin Yan's fist with a relaxed look, but in the next second, Lin Yan's fist appeared in his field of vision again. Varied. Before he finished speaking, Lin Yan's angry blow hit Yi Zhang's face directly, retreating him a few steps directly. Well, after stepping back a few steps and standing again, Yi Shang clutched his nose, and saw a few drops of bright red liquid slowly dripping from the place where Lin Yan hit. You got so mixed up, you actually shot my face. Yi Shang, who felt that he was beaten by Lin Yan so that his image was lost, had an angry expression on his face. After all, Lin Yan didn't talk about martial ethics at all, so suddenly he didn't say anything about it, and he directly attacked his handsome face. Don't you know whether to beat people or not? What? Lin Yan turned his own wrist, and then headed towards Yi Shang with a grinning face, releasing his aura as he walked. Of course, he didn't reach the talent level, it was just the limit of the disciple level. Feeling Lin Yan's breath, Yi Zhang's expression gradually became serious. Judging from the breath that Lin Yan released, he was not weaker than him, and he was a tough and powerful enemy. When Lin Yan approached Yi Shang 2 steps away, Yi Shang took the first shot. A spiral pierced his hand toward Lin Yan's chest, but Lin Yan reacted faster, and directly hit Yi Zhang's wrist with a palm. His attack was resolved. One hit missed. Yi Shang also used other martial arts. As the leader of Yomi, he is the heir of unity appointed by Yiying. Therefore, the martial arts he learned includes the skills of all the 9 boxes, in the 1 shadow and 9 boxes, of the cadres of the dark empty-handed group. Known as the perfect person, Yi Zhang's talent is also very good, even surpassing Liang Shanbo's masters. Copying requires 1,500 fate points. If it were not for dying early, he would definitely become the leader of the darkness in the future. Inherit the position of a shadow. However, even if the current Yi Shang is definitely the strongest existence among the disciples, it is impossible to beat Lin Yan, who is already a master. Yi Shang constantly changes his attack methods, and Lin Yan steadily follows. Meiyu watched the battle very seriously. After all, the 2 people present were stronger than her, and because Lin Yan didn't use his full strength, the 2 people who played evenly could provide Meiyu with a good reference. As Yi Shang kept attacking, his heart began to become heavy, because he found that no matter how he attacked, his attacks were all blocked by Lin Yan, even those unexpected moves. And this feeling of fighting like a quagmire, he only experienced in the bodies of the masters of On, those dark cadres. It was another attack that failed, and he wanted to step back directly, and jump to the side wall a few times in a row, breaking away from the entanglement with Lin Yan. I didn't expect you to be so strong. You really deserve to be Liang Shanbo's chief disciple, but I will not give up. Fengguan Temple Miu will definitely become my woman. Yi Shang touched the sweat on his head. Although there was a little vein, he still put down a cruel word to Lin Yan, and then blew a kiss to Mei Yu. Anger. Lin Yan's anger surged, and he was just about to use all his strength to give Yi Shang a fierce shot, and completely defeated him. Yi Shang seemed to perceive the danger and jumped away from here. Count that guy runs fast. Lin Yan hummed twice, then walked to Mei Yu's side, picked up the bag that she had put down before, and prepared to continue walking home with Mei Yu. Yan, why didn't you use your full strength just now? Obviously that Yi Shang is not your opponent. Walking on the road, Mei Yu uttered her doubts to Lin Yan. After all, she had known that Lin Yan was already a master, and Yi Shang, who was just now, obviously hadn't reached the level of a human being. If you solve him too early, the follow-up will be boring. I'm still waiting to catch the people behind him. However, if I had known that he was so persevering to Miu Yu, I should just go all out to destroy him. Quote. Although Lin Yan wanted to let Yi Shang bring the members of Yomi over and let him do a wave of points, he was even more unhappy with Yi Zhang's attitude. How could that guy fall in love with Mei Yu at first sight? And may not give up easily. Be sure to give him a cruel shot next time you meet. Lin Yan whispered dissatisfiedly. The voice was so small that Mei Yu next to him couldn't hear him clearly, but he subconsciously glanced at Lin Yan. Ian, you won't be jealous anymore. Don't worry, I won't like that guy. When I meet, I will make someone his woman or something. What a scumbag. Mei Yu smiled sweetly at Lin Yan, and then happily started running towards Liang Shanbo. Looking at Mei Yu's back, Lin Yan shook his head helplessly, and then speeded up his steps. On the other side, Yi Shang, who was struck by Lin Yan, also returned to Yomi's base in Japan. When he appeared, looking at his face, someone couldn't help but started pointing to Yi Zhang's nose and laughing loudly. Ha ha ha, Yi Shang, what's the matter with you? How is your nose deformed? Ha ha ha. A little loli who seemed to be only 13.4 years old, saw Yi Zhang's nose smashed by Lin Yan, and completely lost his cold look before lying on the ground holding his belly and laughing crazily. Hey, little Chenying, you're enough, don't laugh anymore. Seeing Kushidan Chenying kept smiling, Yi Shang couldn't hold back anymore, he was completely helpless with this little loli. After laughing for a while, Kushida Chikage regained his expressionless cold state. Yi Shang, it's so funny that you are like this. Didn't you go to the chief disciple of Liang Shanbo? Why did you come back like this? Yi Shang touched On's nose, and then gave a wry smile. It's me careless, that guy named Lin Yan is very strong, I'm afraid he is stronger than me, I think he should have the strength of a master. Hearing the affirmation in Yi Zhang's words, Kushida Chikage was also lost in thought. She also didn't expect their target strength to be so strong, I am afraid it would be difficult to get this strongest name. Oh, is that chief disciple really so strong? Couldn't it be Yi Shang that you said on purpose, wanting us to get out of trouble, and then you can defeat that Lin Yan and get the strongest name? Latin Jahan. Yi Shang looked at the incoming person, his face was also a little surprised, he didn't expect that this guy would also appear here. Even if it is true, since the dark side gave us the task of capturing the strongest name, then we should complete this task. Another person came out, a tall man, with a trace of soldier's breath away from him. You are here too, Belis Ivanov. No, we are not the only ones here. And us. As the voice fell, a few people walked to Yi Zhang's side. Unexpectedly, all the members of Yomi are here. Looking at these people around him, Yi Shang smiled bitterly. He didn't expect that the members of Yomi were all gathered here, and the goal was naturally the strongest title carried by Liang Shanbo's chief disciple Lin Yan. This is what Ogata Yijinsai said, he said Lin Yan is the strongest disciple-level figure he has ever seen. Therefore, the dark side sent Yomi not only to get the strongest name, also in order to strike a wave of Liangshanpo. This is the order issued by Theon Shadow 9 Boxing. We, Yomi, will defeat Liang Shanbo's disciple and bring back the title of the strongest disciple. Belis Ivanov said to Yi Shang in a very serious tone. The Yomi members around him also nodded, indicating that they had only come here after receiving orders from the master. Yi Shang couldn't help these people. Although he was the leader of Yomi, he was kind by nature, so he didn't use his strength to suppress these Yomi members with different personalities. This also caused them to often ignore Yi Shang. However, all the members of Yomi gathered to defeat Lin Yan. Yi Shang always had an unpleasant feeling in his heart when he thought of the situation of his fight with Lin Yan today. Really, today I met a dark person who is stronger than Miu. After Lin Yan and Meiyu returned to Liangshanpo, they told Qiu Temple Chuyu about Yi Zhang's attack on them before, and then Qiu Temple Chuyu also fell into contemplation. It seems that the Dark has sent their true elite disciples. However, for you, Yan, there should be no problem. Now it is even more dangerous, it is Kenichi. Indeed, it doesn't matter what I say, anyway, as long as it is not shot by a top expert like Yi Yingjuquan, I can't lose, but Kenichi may also become their target. He is too dangerous. Hearing Qiu Temple Chuyu's worries, Lin Yan nodded, and after a while, the two looked at each other, and at the same time they smiled, and their eyes flashed brightly. It seems that Kenichi is going to have some intensive training. ×2. The next day. What? After hearing Misakigoshi Temple Chuyu told him that he would conduct intensive training, Shirahama Kenichi was taken aback first, and then he hugged Misakigoshi Temple Chuyu's thigh with a look of despair. Master Jayu Temple, why? I don't want it, it will be dead, it will really be dead. This is for your good, Kenichi, the dark people have begun to attack us, and you are now the most dangerous person in Liang Shanbo. Misakigoshiji Chuyu smiled and patted Shirahama Kenichi on the head, and then dragged him away for intensive training. In another place, Lin Yan was also fighting with Nigui Jersu. Of course, because Lin Yan was already a master, Nigui Jersu was not as merciful as when he was training Johnny. The two of you keep coming and going. Fortunately, Lin Yan is now good at strength and talented. He can do well under the unrelenting attacks of Nigui Jersu, and even occasionally counterattack 1 or 2 times, but he is also relaxed by Nigui Jersu. Of the block. Boy Lin Yan, your strength has improved so fast, I feel I am almost out of things to teach you. When he finished playing and rested, Nigui Jersu patted Lin Yan on the shoulder, and then looked at Lin Yan with relief. However, Lin Yan could still hear a bit of pride in his tone. After all, Nigui Jersu was also an old tsundere. It's okay, thanks to the serious teaching of the masters, otherwise I can't make progress so fast. Lin Yan smiled and lifted the inverse ghost Jerju's sentence, causing him to laugh. After finishing the fight with Nigui Jersu, Lin Yanggong was about to go to Apache to practice, but he ran into Ma Jiangxing in the middle. Yeah, Xiao Yan, you came right in time. What's the matter with Master Ma? Lin Yan looked at Ma Jiangxing suspiciously, not knowing what he was going to do. I got some news from Natsumi Tanimoto. It seems that his master, Midage Carbine Moon, appeared in Japan, so I am going to find someone to get some news, so come with me. Okay. Lin Yan did not refuse, so he followed Ma Jiangxing to Chinatown. How about it, isn't it nice here? This is the feeling of our hometown. Ma Jiangxing pointed to the various snacks from China nearby, as well as various Chinese handicrafts. Lin Yan can even hear authentic Chinese cries, and some dialects are mixed in it. Well, it's really good, thank you Master Ma. Lin Yan, who has not heard Chinese for a long time, feels like he has returned to his hometown, but it is true that Chinatown is the place where most overseas Chinese live. Although the people here come from all corners of China, they are very united. After all, there are no foreign countries. Easy. Walking along, Ma Jiangxing took Lin Yan to a restaurant called Ni Lin Restaurant. Long time no see, Uncle Baimei. Ma Jiangxing took off his hat, showing his bald head, and bowed to the owner of the restaurant. Haha, it's been a long time, Jiangxing. This is. The old man glanced at Lin Yan, and then asked Ma Jiangxing. This is my disciple Lin Yan. Xiao Yan, this is the most knowledgeable and talented person in Chinatown. His real name is Ma Liang and his nickname is Baimei. After introducing Lin Yan to Ma Liang, Ma Jiangxing also introduced Ma Liang to Lin Yan. Hello, Grandpa Ma Liang. Lin Yan was very sensible and bowed to Ma Liang. After all, respecting the old and loving the young is a traditional virtue of the Chinese nation. Ha ha ha, well, Jiangxing, you have accepted a good disciple. Ma Liang looked at Lin Yan and nodded, praised Ma Jiangxing, and then led the two to a dining table, when the table was full of vegetables. Don't worry about eating. Looking at Lin Yan, who is also a Chinese, Ma Liang touched Lin Yan's head with great relief, and then let him eat to his heart's content. After all, I haven't tasted authentic Chinese food for a long time, and Lin Yan ate it without hesitation. While Lin Yan was eating, Ma Jiangxing and Ma Liang also began to communicate. After Ma Jiangxing said that Carbine Moon may have been in Japan, Ma Liang's face became serious, and then he told Ma Jiangxing that he would pay attention to this information. News will tell him. Just when the two were talking about it, a figure jumped from the second floor and noticed that the wrong Lin Yan moved the table away to prevent it from being kicked. It's not because he hasn't eaten enough, but it's shameful to waste food. This is not in line with Chinese virtues. However, the figure who jumped down didn't care about Lin Yan's movements, her target was Ma Jiangxing. However, her kick that fell from the sky was directly avoided by Ma Jiangxing, and then he was taunted. Although I don't know where you are sacred, but if you want to kick daddy down, let's practice for hundreds of years. Seeing that my daughter didn't recognize it, Dad, have you forgotten me? Seeing Ma Jiangxing didn't even react to him, Ma Lianghua's face suddenly became cold. Yeah, Lianghua, long time no see. Ma Jiangxing suddenly broke into cold sweat, and stretched out his hand to say hello to his daughter. Then, Ma Lianghua directly threw a chain hammer to tie Ma Jiangxing's hand. Dad, stop struggling, come back to China with me. In order to find you, I rushed over from China and worked here. Finally, I caught you. Ha ha ha, sorry Lianghua, I can't go back now. Ma Jiangxing exerted a little effort, and directly brought Ma Lianghua down, then unfastened the chain hammer on his body and ran out of the restaurant. When he left, he shouted to Lin Yan, apprentice, I'll leave it to you next. Watching Ma Jiangxing directly Dao Ziyao, Lin Yan, who was eating vegetables, said that your family ethics drama is a shit to me. Doesn't it taste good to eat? However, it was clear that Ma Jiangxing had already escaped, and Lin Yan had been smashed before leaving, so Ma Lianghua would naturally not let Lin Yan go, and rushed directly to Lin Yan who was eating, and slapped the table fiercely. Where did my father go? As a disciple, you must know. Facing Ma Lianghua's aggressiveness, Lin Yan slowly chewed the food in his mouth, then swallowed it, and calmly said to Ma Lianghua, yeah. Master Ma should go to Liangshanpo now. Liang Shanbo. Hearing this name, Ma Lianghua was also stunned for a moment, and then asked Lin Yan to take her to Liangshanpo. The reason was naturally that she didn't recognize the way. Lin Yan didn't object either. After finishing the food, he said goodbye to Mr. Ma Liang and rushed to Liangshanpo with Ma Lianghua. I'm sorry, Master Ma, if you pit me first, then I pit it back, you won't blame me. On the way back, Lin Yan glanced at Ma Lianghua who was obviously angry next to him, and silently mourned Ma Jiangxing in his heart. Speaking of which, why do you want to bring Master Ma back to China? Dad, he is the highest person in charge of the Phoenix Martial Arts League, which has 100,000 disciples in China. Moreover, there are mothers and 2 little brothers on the Chinese side. As a result, he went to Japan without a word, and will do business. Throw it all to Mom. Thinking of this, Ma Lianghua clenched his fists, clenching his teeth. Wow, Master Ma is really a scumbag. Of course, Lin Yan just thought about it in his heart and didn't say anything. After all, Master Ma's daughter is still next to him. If you say this to her father, you may not be angry. After returning to Liangshanpo, Lin Yan took Ma Lianghua into it, just in time to see Chuyu passing by at Cape Usc Temple. Master Jiayu Temple, have you seen Master Ma? Sword Star, no, he hasn't come back yet. Speaking of which, Yan, who is the girl next to you? Qiu Temple Chuyu saw Lin Yan brought back a girl, although his tone was a little surprised, but his face was still calm. This is Ma Lianghua, Master Ma's daughter, who came here specifically from China to find Master Ma. Oh, it turned out to be Jiangxing's daughter, welcome to Liangshanpo. Lin Yan introduced Ma Lianghua, and Ma Lianghua also wisely gave a gift to Qiu Temple Chuyu, and then Qiu Temple Chuyu nodded his head and left. It seems that Master Ma hasn't returned yet. What are you going to do next? Lin Yan looked back at Ma Lianghua, and said that he couldn't help it now. Since Ma Jianxing was not here, Lin Yan really didn't know where he had gone. It's okay, Dad should live here now, then I'll just wait here, I don't believe he won't come back here. Ma Lianghua shook his fist and looked at Lin Yan with an expression that I would never give up. Lin Yan sighed and had to take her to the reception room. It's so strange that it is the daughter of Sword Star, that old pervert looks like he can find his wife. Outside the reception room, the experts in Liang Shanbo were secretly observing Ma Lianghua, while Lin Yan and the others accompanied her as peers. Well, don't look at Jian Xing like this, I heard he was a beautiful man when he was young. Elder touched his own beard, and made an excuse for Ma Jianxing. But it's okay that he didn't say it. Once he finished talking about it, the faces of the people next to him became a little subtle. The years are really not forgiving. In the end, it was Kasaka Shiger who broke the silence. After a few people looked at each other, they also smiled awkwardly. Tea, thanks. Mei Yu poured a cup of tea and pushed it in front of Ma Lianghua, and then Ma Lianghua also thanked Mei Yu. If Ma Jianxing is not there, Ma Lianghua's performance is really a lady of everyone, after all, she has learned etiquette since she was a child. Time passed slowly like this for a few hours, and the moon was high in the sky. Finally, Ma Jianxing returned to Liangshanpo. What's the matter with you? As soon as Ma Jianxing came back, he saw a group of people gathered around the reception room, and then leaned forward to ask with a dazed expression. Ah, Sword Star, you are back. Qiu Temple Chuyu turned around to see Ma Jianxing approaching, coughed, and then winked at him. However, because there was no communication beforehand, Ma Jianxing did not understand what Qiu Temple Chuyu was expressing at all. Dad, you give up resistance and go back with me obediently. At this moment, a person rushed out of the reception room, and then quickly ran to Ma Jianxing and tied him firmly with an iron chain. Lianhua, why are you here? Why can't I be here? Ma Lianghua asked Ma Jianxing back, and then pulled the iron chain on his hand to try to tie it tighter. Ma Jianxing looked at Ma Lianghua helplessly, then saw Lin Yan coming out behind her again, and suddenly understood in her heart that this little Lin Yan betrayed him. However, it is too late to know now. Since Ma Lianghua has appeared here, he must also have a good talk with his daughter, because he cannot never return to Liangshanpo. Lianhua, it is impossible for me to follow you back to China, I still have my own things to do. What can make you abandon your own wife and daughter, and the 100,000 disciples of the Phoenix Alliance? I don't care, you have to go back with me, and explain to your mother what is going on. Facing Ma Jianxing's sincere tone, Ma Lianghua did not give in at all, but instead led Ma Jianxing into the army. After all, it was indeed that he abandoned everything, went to Japan, and never contacted his own wife and daughter. The scene was deadlocked for a time, and the two father and daughter did not give in, and the people next to them were too embarrassed to intervene. After all, this was a household chore, and it was inconvenient for them to be a group of outsiders. Master Ma, no matter what the reason is, you can't ignore your family. Let's do this. Tonight, Lianghua will stay in Liangshanpo. Master Ma, your father and daughter, have a good exchange of feelings. If you have something to say, it will be fine. Quote. The sudden voice of Lin Yan attracted everyone's attention, but what he said made sense. No matter what, his family was the most important thing. Ma Jianxing also lowered his head, glanced at Ma Lianghua, and then nodded, indicating that he knew that he would not continue to escape, and Ma Lianghua untied the chain. Oh, Lianhua, you are really, forget it, come with me, I will talk to you. Looking at his daughter, Ma Jianxing was really uncomfortable, so he sighed, and then walked to the own room. As he passed by Lin Yan, he turned his head and stared at Lin Yan fiercely. Lin Yan touched his head and smirked as he pretended to be shocked. Ma Jianxing glanced at him and said nothing, and continued to walk forward. Seeing Ma Jianxing left, Ma Lianghua also hurriedly followed, and stopped when passing by Lin Yan, then solemnly thanked him, and Lin Yan waved his hand to express not to care too much. Seeing that the two father and daughter were going to talk, everyone in Liang Shanbo looked at each other, but they were not good at eavesdropping, so they had to go back to their respective rooms to rest. The next day, when Lin Yan woke up early and finished the morning exercise, he saw Ma Liangwa running towards him with a happy face. What's wrong? HMPH, I had a good chat with my father, and he promised that I would go back later when I had time, and that I would come to Liangshanpo often in the future. Really, that's fine. Looking at Ma Liangwa with a happy face, Lin Yan also laughed. After a while, Ma Liangwa ran to Liangshanpo every day, and even her part-time job at Nilan Hotel often skipped work. Fortunately, Mr. Ma Liang didn't care much about her, otherwise she might have to be driven out. On the weekend, Lin Yan took Meiyu and Ma Liangwa to Chinatown. As for the reason, of course, he brought Meiyu to try Chinese food. With the passage of time, Lin Yan took the two women and ate Chinatown all the way. Fortunately, everyone was a martial artist and had a much better digestion ability than ordinary people, and they were not afraid of gaining weight, so the three of them ate. It's so cool. Just as the three of them were sitting at a table, eating and chatting, suddenly, a person in a nearby restaurant smashed the wall made of wood and rolled to the side of the road. Oh, dare not to pay the protection fee, do you still want to open this restaurant? A few underworld youths walked out of the broken hole, and the leader walked to the person who had just smashed the wall, gave him a fierce kick, venting his own dissatisfaction. Ahem, Mr. Baimei has said that if we want to draw a clear line from the underworld of democracy, how can I give in to you? Although the injured person on the ground hurts, they still look at the leading underworld with an unyielding expression. You are so courageous, and that white eyebrow, you will kill him sooner or later. The underworld youth said something disdainfully, and then turned his head and asked his subordinates to give him a severe beating on the ground. Just when his men were about to take a shot, a person stood in front of them. Since you said Uncle Baimei's name, then as a relative, I can't do anything. I will disappear within 5 seconds. Seeing Ma Liangwa who stood in front of him still dared to threaten them, several people from the underworld looked at each other and then approached with a grinning grin. Seeing this scene, Lin Yan held his forehead helplessly, but he couldn't just watch it. Therefore, when the underworld wanted to attack her, Lin Yan directly blocked their fists, and then directly knocked them out with one punch. Quote ? Do you dare to attack us? Are you afraid of our revenge? I tell you, the bodyguard of our club is the famous Carbine Moon. Lin Yan and Ma Liangwa were shocked when they heard this name, and then they walked to the side of the underworld youth. You, what do you want to do? Seeing Lin Yan, who had easily put down his subordinates, gradually approached him, the underworld youth was also quite scared and kept backing away. Lin Yan and Ma Liangwa looked at each other, and then Lin Yan went straight up and gave the young man a punch. He didn't hit the head or the stomach without using too much force. It just made him unable to resist. Then, Ma Liangwa took the shot and pried out the location of Carbine Yu from this bad mouth, and then Lin Yan simply knocked him out. Lianhua, what are you going to do? After taking a look at Ma Liangwa, Lin Yan didn't know what this Ma family's junior would do after learning about the traitor, Carbine Yu. Well, even though it's my uncle, he has lost all his face to our Ma family. I'm going to clean up the door. Looking back at Lin Yan, he seemed to have made up his mind. After Ma Liangwa finished speaking, he walked directly to the address he had asked from the underworld. Seeing Ma Liangwa's boldness, he immediately ran to challenge Carbine Moon. Lin Yan was also speechless. However, he was a steady person. He made a call directly to Liang Shanbo, and then told the answering Kasaka Shigur about the incident and asked her to notify Ma Zhengxing to come and save the scene. After all, Lin Yan was not sure that he could win the Carbine Moon. Not far from the gate of the underworld stronghold, looking at the few people standing at the gate of the stronghold, Lin Yan and Meiyu who were behind Ma Liangwa glanced at each other, and grabbed Ma Liangwa who was just about to rush over. What are you doing? Ma Liangwa looked at the two Ons puzzledly. It should be what you want to do. You just rushed over like this. Lin Yan's mouth twitched, feeling speechless at Ma Liangwa's actions. Is this kid's head lacking? Of course, what else can you do without rushing over? Ma Liangwa looked at Lin Yan with a puzzled look, as if he was puzzled by his cautious behavior. After all, it was just a trifle. She hadn't beaten him before. What if someone has a gun in his hand? What if you just rushed it and something happens? Lin Yanyu eagerly persuaded Ma Liangwa, but unfortunately Ma Lianghua had a mindset, ignoring the possible threats Lin Yan said, and rushed directly from the front door. Looking at Ma Lianghua, who rushed over, Lin Yan sighed, and looked at each other with Meiyu, and both smiled bitterly. Then, Lin Yan directly chased after him. After all, he was the strongest on the scene. He had to take care of Ma Lianghua, otherwise Ma Jiangxing would not be easy to explain. Fortunately, this group of gangsters had no guns in their hands. Facing Ma Jiangxing's daughter, Ma Lianghua, who had been learning Chinese fist technique since childhood, had no strength to fight back. He easily defeated the goalkeeper boy, then kicked the door open and walked away. Go in. Walking in the corridor, Ma Lianghua felt the aura inside, and wanted to find the location of Carbine Moon. At this moment, she felt a threat approaching her. Bang! With a loud noise, the wall on the side where Ma Lianghua stood before was directly penetrated, forming a big hole, and then a big, beard-faced middle-aged uncle walked out of it. I thought it was a sword star, and felt a familiar aura. I didn't expect it to be a few hairy boys. Ma Qiangyu glanced at Lin Yan, who had just hugged Ma Lianghua and retreated to a safe position, and laughed a few times. Carbine Moon, you traitor of the Ma clan, I will clear the door for the Ma family today. Seeing the appearance of Carbine Moon, Ma Lianghua was full of anger and wanted to rush over to give him a kick, but Lin Yan hugged her tightly and prevented her from rushing over. Meiyu, Lian Hua will leave it to you, don't let him rush over, the opposite is the expert. Handing Ma Lianghua to Meiyu, Lin Yan also specifically exhorted him. After seeing Meiyu nodding, he looked at Carbine Moon again. Although he was easily defeated by Ma Jiangxing in the original book, the gap between him and Ma Jiangxing is not that big. They are both at the level of top talents, and Lin Yan is not his opponent yet. I hope Master Ma can arrive in time. Lin Yan muttered silently in his heart, and then exuded his own aura. The talent level aura made Karaman Yu a little surprised. Interesting, such a young expert. Boy, where do you learn from? Carbine Yu, who suddenly became interested in Lin Yan, asked Lin Yan calmly. I am Ma Jiangxing's disciple, Liang Shanbo's chief disciple Lin Yan. Oh, it turned out to be a disciple of Sword Star, interesting. Hearing the name Ma Jiangxing, the momentum of Carbine Moon burst out directly. Seeing this, Lin Yan didn't dare to continue the stalemate, and rushed forward to condense the ripples, and punched Carbine Yu. However, Carbine Moon on the opposite side was not simple, he also gathered his energy, and directly hit Lin Yan with a pair of fists. The two held a stalemate with their fists for a while. Carbine Moon showed a smile, then moved to Lin Yan's side, and directly slashed an 8 trigrams palm against Lin Yan. Seeing the menacing attack of Carbine Yu, Lin Yan also directly raised his hand to deflect his attack, and then slammed a punch with his other hand to the waist of Carbine Yu. Carbine Yu, who had endured this punch, stepped back a few steps, and then looked at Lin Yan with interest. He didn't expect Lin Yan to have such strength. This is not an ordinary expert level. Even if it is not as good as a top expert, the gap is not particularly far. Just as the two were about to continue their fight, another time the wall shattered, and a short figure rushed in, and then kicked directly at Carbine Yu. However, his foot was easily avoided by Carbine Yu, kicked to the side of the wall, and the wall shattered instantly, as if it was about to collapse at any time. Long time no see, Sword Star. It's really been a long time, Dage. Seeing Ma Jiangxing arrived, Kara Gunyu smiled happily, as if she had finally seen her relatives she hadn't seen in a long time. However, Ma Jiangxing's face on the other side was quite serious, and the look in Carbine Moon's eyes was like looking at the enemy. Xiao Yan, step back first, and then leave it to me. Okay, be careful, master. Lin Yan stepped back quite obediently and came to Mei Yu's side. Although it just seemed that he and Carbine Moon had the upper point in the fight, but in fact his shot did not cause any harm to Carbine Moon. But on the contrary, in the first collision between the two, Lin Yan's hand bones were shattered by the strong impact of the fist. Fortunately, he has ripples, and the healing effect of the ripples is quite impressive, quickly recovering Lin Yan's injury. Dage, are you still reluctant to return to the right path? Let us return to the days full of laughter. Jiangxing, you don't understand me, and I don't understand you. Returning to the life of the past is already a fantasy. Hearing Ma Jiangyu said this, Ma Jiangxing's face also became lonely. After all, Ma Jiangyu was his pro-big brother no matter what. Then, I can only use my identity as a martial artist to get to know you. HMPH, it should be like this a long time ago. Jiangxing, let me teach you what real martial arts is. After that, the two men faced each other in a cupped fist, both of which were right palm and left fist, which meant that the two sides did not compete, but decided to live and die. After the salute, Carabiner took the lead and slammed directly towards Ma Jiangxing with a punch. The fist wind brought up by the strong fist even shattered the glass next to it. Ma Jiangxing didn't rush, gently stretched out his hand to block the punch, and then flexibly moved quickly beside Carbine Yu, taking advantage of the corridor to throw a punch at Carbine Yu from the air. Carabiner smiled, turned around and punched him. The shock wave directly set off a gust of wind. The two continued to fight, and from time to time they beat the wall next to them torn apart, and the three people who watched the battle were quite speechless. Dad and uncle are the two who are known as the strongest boxers in the Chinese martial arts world. They are Gang Ji Chang Yu, and Soft Sword Star. I am afraid it is not so easy for them to tell the winner. Ma Lianhua, who couldn't get off Lin Yan, looked at the life and death battle between his two relatives, and couldn't help worrying about his father. While Mei Yu looked at Ma Lianhua, who had never wanted to get off Lin Yan, she looked unhappy and stared at her dissatisfied. I don't think Master Ma will lose. After all, he is a master of Liang Shanbo, my master. Lin Yan silently watched the two top talents fight, and gently comforted Ma Lianhua. Of course it was not a comfort. After all, Lin Yan knew that this warhorse Sword Star had won. The battle between Ma Qiangyu and Ma Jiangxing became more and more fierce. Not only was the corridor damaged quite severely, but also several rooms inside were also destroyed. It is estimated that this house will no longer be usable after this battle. Jiangxing, your two-handedness is still so powerful, you actually blocked all my attacks. It was another fight. Carbine Moon's blow, Uranus Tota, was easily blocked by Ma Jiangxing. Looking at Ma Jiangxing standing in the corner of the wall, Carbine Moon stopped his attack. Dage, you are not bad. It seems that you and I have not given up martial arts training in the past 20 years. I would like to know when you lost your martial heart. Stop talking nonsense. Carbine Moon suddenly became irritable. At this moment, an explosion occurred in the underworld stronghold. It turned out that the boss of the underworld was dissatisfied with Carbine's attitude towards him. He also destroyed his stronghold in this way. He directly arranged for the little brother to be a bomb. A few people inside were completely buried. Miu, you leave here with Lian Hua first. Pulling Ma Lianhua off her body, and then asking Mei Yu to take her away, Mei Yu nodded, and then looked at Lin Yan with concern. How about you? Don't worry about me, this explosion can't threaten me, I want to watch the master's battle ending here. Seeing Lin Yan's unwavering eyes, Mei Yu nodded, ignoring the reluctant Ma Lianhua, and pulled her out. On the other side, the two people who were originally facing each other, because of the sudden explosion, caused the body of Ma Jiangxing, who was standing in the corner of the wall, to become unstable and fell directly from the sky. Not good. Good chance. Of course, Ma Qiangyu would not give up this great opportunity, and rushed directly to Ma Jiangxing, who was unable to dodge in the air, and slammed a straight fist. Gum. Ma Jiangxing took the punch abruptly and let out a painful cry. Upon seeing this, Carabiner smiled happily. However, his smile stiffened in the next second. At the same time he hit Ma Jiangxing, it turned out that Ma Jiangxing also used skills at the same time, using the strength of Carbine Moon to give Carbine Moon a few punches, and knocked him back a few steps abruptly. Why, your martial arts has improved so fast. Ma Jianyu looked at Ma Jiangxing with an incredible expression. He had no idea that little brother, who had always been on par with him, would be able to use the martial skill that he had no time to react. Because I have a group of reliable, like-minded partners, friends who can learn from me, and Dage, you have always exercised alone. This is the difference between us. Friend, Ma Qiangyu's face became difficult to look, because he left China because of this in the past. Everyone was afraid of him, but they loved his little brother very much. It was obvious that the difference between the two of them was not too big. The treatment is very different. After exhaling, Carbine Moon directly sat on the ground with a calm face and said to Ma Jiangxing, Jiangxing, you won this contest. You go, let me be buried here. Dage, you. Ma Jiangxing, who originally wanted to persuade Carbine Moon to leave directly, saw Dage's death-seeking eyes, stopped, silently turned around, holding on to his own hat, and said in a rather low tone, "Goodbye, Dage." "Ah, goodbye, little brother." Seeing Ma Jenksing's back, Carbine took out the wine calabash on her body, poured herself a sip of wine, and murmured, "This is the end of the murderer, Jenksing. Although I don't like you very much and I agree with what you just said, but I don't want to see Master Ma's sad look." At this moment, Lin Yan appeared next to Carbine Moon. Looking at the disciple of Ma Jenksing, Carbine Moon was shocked. "What are you doing here? Of course it's taking you out." Facing Carbine Moon's question, Lin Yan responded frankly, and Carbine Moon was quite speechless to Lin Yan, and sighed and said, "You go, I have decided to be buried in the sea of fire like this. This is me. Deserved end. HMPH, I don't care. I only do what I want to do." After speaking, Lin Yan directly stretched out his hand to pull Carbine Yu, but Carbine Yu condensed, and directly raised his hand and patted Lin Yan's hand. However, Lin Yan did not give up, and continued to stretch out his hand to grab Carbine Yu, and the two of them handed over in a sea of flames. Because of the previous duel with Ma Jenksing, especially his own strength at the end, Carbine could not replace all of his strength, and was slowly suppressed by Lin Yan, shocking him. Soon, Lin Yan directly broke through Carbine Yu's defense, and then condensed the ripples on his body, glanced at the surrounding fire, and directly pulled Carbine Yu towards the door. Did Xiaoyan not come out? Ma Jenksing, who rushed out of the stronghold where the fire had started, saw Miu and Ma Lianhua not far away, but he did not see his disciples. "A Yan hasn't come out." "What?" Hearing Meiyu's subconscious answer, Ma Jenksing's expression instantly changed, and Meiyu also discovered something was wrong. Ma Jenksing had come out, while Lin Yan hadn't come out yet. "Ian will nothing happen, right? Dad, go in and save him." Seeing the fire growing bigger and bigger in the stronghold, Ma Lianhua instantly became nervous and urged the Ma Jenksing to go in and rescue Lin Yan. "No, I believe own disciple. Since he hasn't come out yet, it means he has own considerations. Don't worry, Xiaoyan is very strong." Seeing Ma Jenksing unmoved, Ma Lianhua stomped angrily and prepared to rush in to find Lin Yan. Just as she was about to leave, Ma Jenksing was caught by Ma Jenksing. She turned her head and looked at Owen's father with dissatisfaction. "Are you fool who are destroying my stronghold? That fool Carbine Moon is not here. Humph, little ones, give it to me, and teach them a lesson." At this moment, everyone in this burning stronghold, the boss of the underworld, came over. Behind him was a large number of younger brothers with weapons. Hearing the boss's words, all the little brothers immediately laughed, looking at the two beautiful girls in front of them and a short old man who was useless at first glance, and surrounded them with weapons. "Smelly old man, go to hell." A gangster young man stood in front of Ma Jenksing with a machete, then raised his hand and swung the machete down. In his mind, the old man opposite should be severely injured by him. Unfortunately, ideals are always different from reality. When his knife was swung down, Ma Jenksing raised his hand and hit his wrist. The machete in his hand couldn't be grasped at once, and then Ma Jenksing punched him on the chin, causing him to faint directly. "Really, I'm not in a good mood right now, don't blame my men for being merciless." As soon as the voice fell, Ma Jenksing's figure disappeared in place. Then, in the vision of the underworld boss, his little brothers were quickly knocked down by a fast figure. After a while, all his little brothers lost consciousness, leaving him alone. The polished boss. You. Seeing Ma Jenksing, who reappeared, the triad boss was so scared that he couldn't speak. He pointed his finger at Ma Jenksing, and then immediately turned and ran. Drink. Just when he ran a few steps, Ma Lianhua jumped over and kicked him from the air, causing him to fall to the ground fiercely, even grinding a distance directly on the ground. "You are the boss of the underworld who is going to take action against Uncle Baimei, right? Seeing how I teach you today, I dare to have ideas about our Ma family." Ma Lianhua, who stepped on the back of the underworld boss, ignored his wailing, and slammed a punch in his face, and then another punch until he fainted. After the three people waiting outside the stronghold solved the underworld, the door of the stronghold suddenly shattered, and then one figure pulled the other figure directly out. Lin Yan finally rushed out of the sea of flames and let out a deep sigh. Fortunately, there was a corrugated body protector, otherwise he would have been burned by the fire just now. Just when he was feeling that the ripple was so useful, a figure, oh no, 2 figures directly hit him. Ian, are you okay? ×2. At the same time, Miu and Ma Lianhua, who said the same sentence, froze for a moment, then glanced at each other, and then turned their heads in opposite directions with a hum. Looking at the 2 women holding themselves, Lin Yan could only smile helplessly. At this moment, Ma Jiangxing walked over and saw that his daughter actually pounced on Lin Yan, and he coughed heavily, which made the 2 women converge a little, and left Lin Yan's side, standing aside obediently. And enjoy a wave of beautiful girl's soft body embrace. Lin Yan can only secretly sigh a pity, and then turn his gaze to Carbine Yu, who is sitting on the ground without saying a word. Ma Jiangxing, who was walking by, also saw Carbine Moon sitting on the ground, and he suddenly breathed a sigh of relief for not knowing why. Dage, don't look at me. If this kid hadn't pulled me out, I would have been prepared to die inside. If you are not satisfied, just take my life here. Looking at Ma Jiangxing, who was silent, Carbine Moon laughed directly, then opened her own hands, signaled that she would not resist, and let Ma Jiangxing take his life. Cough cough. Master Ma is a master of living boxing and can't kill. Besides, I was very upset with you from the beginning. Quote. Seeing Lin Yan suddenly speak, and pointed the finger at herself, Carbine Moon was also stunned. Master Ma doesn't want to kill you at all. He just wants you to come back to him. Isn't the purpose of your first learning martial arts to kill people? No matter what, your family is your most precious treasure in this world. N.S. Listening to Lin Yan's teaching, not only the taught Carbine Yu was stunned, but also the Ma Jiangxing and Mei Yu next to him, and even Hua was stunned in place, and Lin Yan's words were not over yet. Have you never found out? Real martial arts, only when you protect your important people, will you exert the strongest strength. Lin Yan stopped talking, and Karagi Moon lowered her head, not knowing what to say. Ma Lianhua wanted to say something, but Miu was caught. Dage, come back, whether it's me or you, forget the feeling between brothers. Ma Jiangxing was softened by oral administration first, hoping that Carbine Moon could come back, but Carbine Moon shook her head after pondering for a while, and then, after looking at Lin Yan, turned her gaze to Ma Jiangxing. Sword Star, I can't go back anymore. I am no longer the Carbine Month I used to kill. Even so, are you willing to treat me as Dage? Of course, the blood connection between family members will not be severed. Even if you are not the Carbine Month of the past, you are still my Dage. Seeing Ma Jiangxing's serious expression, Carbine Yu laughed, and then stood up. Lin Yan looked at the brothers on the sidelines, and couldn't help but complain. This height difference turned out to be brothers. Jiangxing, it's nice to have you as little brother, but I can't go back yet. There are some mistakes that I need to solve by myself. I'm sorry. After speaking, Ma Qiangyu jumped directly onto the roof next to him, looked back at Ma Jiangxing, smiled heartily at him, and then turned and left. Don't stop him, Master Ma. No, I saw his eyes become clear again, I believe him. Lin Yan nodded and didn't say much. Ma Jiangxing looked at the direction Carbine Moon was leaving, and after a while he recovered, and greeted several young people back to Liang Shanpo. Ding! Congratulations to the host for defeating the gangster, Ghosts and Guns, and changing the follow-up plot to get 3,000 destiny points and 5,000 points. On the way back, Lin Yan heard the system's prompt, and then looked dazed, calling his own system in his mind. System, I also defeated Carbine Moon. Ding! Report to the host, even if you were defeated at the risk of others, that counts. I don't need to talk about taking advantage of people's danger, really. Lin Yan silently complained about his own system, but this wave of fate came in time. When he met Yi Shang before, he copied Yi Zhang's talent 1500, this time he copied the talent of Carbine Moon 2000, and his fate point was almost empty. 1 week later, Carbine Moon's whereabouts completely disappeared, and Tanimoto Sha also disappeared. But before leaving, Ji Benxia had specifically told Lin Yan that his master was going to find him and wanted to take him away. Lin Yan thought that Ma Changyu should return to Yi Yingju Quan and then become an undercover agent, and his apprentice Ji Benxia is also related to Lin Yan. He probably wants Ji Benxia to enter Yomi as an undercover agent. However, this is good. Anyway, Shinbai United is now on the right track. Tani Benxia can become stronger after joining Yomi. Lin Yan does not object. However, After knowing that Tanimoto Shaw was leaving temporarily, the other people in Shinbai United specially arranged a farewell party. On this day, the boring class was over again. Lin Yan accompanied Mei Yu to the rhythmic gymnastics club. The two were talking about what to buy while waiting to go home. Because the food at home has been eaten, so after the club activities are over, Mei Yu will first go to the market to buy some food and go back, and of course Lin Yan followed to make coolie. Ha ha ha, Fenglinsi Mei Yu, I didn't expect you to live with someone else. It seems that I have to tell the teacher about this. In the vicinity where neither of them paid attention, the former rhythmic gymnastics club ace Chihiro Takashima, a sophomore senior, after hearing the conversation between the two, prepared to add a blockage to Fengrinji Miyu, and it would be best to let her lose her new life. This position is the ace of the gymnastics club. On Saturday the next day, Miyu was cleaning, while Lin Yan and Kenichi Shirahama were in a dual exercise. Of course, Lin Yan needed to put some water. After all, his strength surpassed Kenichi Shirahama too much. Ah, it's not good. When the two were practicing duel, Miyu's shout came from the room, which shook both Lin Yan and Shirahama Kenichi to a halt. Of course, the others are still doing their own things and have no response. What's wrong, Miyu? Lin Yan walked up to Mei Yu, looked at the anxious Mei Yu and asked with concern. Mei Yu only then recovered, glanced at Lin Yan, and then at the masters who were still doing own things. Shen, take a breath. All members gather. Under the majesty of Mei Yu, everyone reluctantly leaned in front of Mei Yu, even lined up, and Lin Yan was taken aback for a while. The big thing is not good. The teacher called to explain that tomorrow is coming home to visit. I'll come here when I visit home, but there is a teacher who dares to come here who is not afraid of death. I will take good care of him. Nigui Jersu squeezed his fists and looked at Mei Yu proudly, saying that he threatened the teacher. Apacha on the side also echoed a few words, making Mei Yu angry enough. Your attitude is too problematic. More importantly, I filled in my parents' information in the family information, and my grandfather is not in Liangshanpo now, so someone must act as my parents. Huh, really troublesome. Nigui Jersu touched his head. He was not good at this kind of thing, but his eyes lit up when he saw Chuyu at Cape Usc Temple. Chuyu, just play Miyu's father. Nigui Jersu made his suggestion, and Miwa also looked forward to watching Chuyu at Misakigoshi Temple, but it was a pity that Chuyu at Misakigoshi Temple shook his head, saying that he had something to do tomorrow, so he couldn't help. Apacha can do it. No, your nationality is wrong. Although Apacha looked like helping, but looking at this Thai nationality expert, Mei Yu turned his forehead and turned him down. Miyu, I can, at least I am the father of a few children, so I can play it. No, Master Ma, your nationality is wrong, and can you really be a good father? Although Ma Jiangxing is okay, Mei Yu and Ma Lianhua have talked a lot recently, and she doesn't trust Ma Jiangxing, a master who left his wife and daughter and went to Japan to act as a father. Then there is only. Mei Yu was silent for a while, then looked up at Nigui Jersu. Liang Shanbo was just such a person, except for Nigui Jersu, she had no choice. Let me play Miyu's father. Seeing Miyu nodded, Nigui Jersu was also a little dumbfounded, he had never tried to be a father. Then, mother's words. In fact, there is no choice. There is only one female talent in Liang Shanbo, and that is Kasaka Shiger. Shiger was also stunned when Miwa looked at her. In this way, Master Nigui will be the father and Sister Shiu will be the mother. This is how we will deal with tomorrow's teacher's home visit, only success is not allowed to fail. Feeling Miwa's aura, Nigui Zio and Kasaka Shiger nodded subconsciously. Should we leave tomorrow, or hide? If the teacher knew that we were living here, would it not be so good? Kenichi Shirahama glanced at Lin Yan, wanting to hear his opinion, but although Lin Yan didn't care what the teacher thinks at all, after all, you expect him to be a ghost who sleeps in class every day to listen to the teacher's words, but for Miyu's sake, Lin Yan still agreed with Shirahama Kenichi's idea. On the weekend, on the way to Liangshanbo, the Japanese history teacher Ornaga Fukujiro, who is the head teacher, took the deputy head teacher, Japanese teacher Kyoko Ono, to Liangshanbo. Mr. Ono, as the deputy head teacher, you also need to understand the situation of the students, so I brought you here specially for this home visit. Do you know if you want to study hard? Fukujiro Ornaga looked at Ono Kyoko, who was a little nervous, and said in a very serious tone, which surprised Ono Kyoko. After looking at Ornaga Fukujiro, his bald head and glasses reflected sunlight, even after irritating her eyes. Kyoko Ono nodded quickly. When they came to Liang Shanbo's gate, looking at the slightly dilapidated dojo, the two teachers were a little silent at this time. At this moment, Liang Shanbo's door suddenly opened, as if welcoming their home visit, but the problem was that there was no one behind the door. After swallowing saliva, Fukujiro Ornaga took Ono Kyoko into the door. At this time, Ono Kyoko suddenly looked up and found a strong man smiling at him. She was stupid. What? Kyoko Ono let out a violent scream, and Apcha realized that he was found, and immediately disappeared on the door rail. Ms. Ono, what's wrong with you? Hearing Ono Kyoko's scream, Fukujiro Ornaga immediately looked back at her and asked with concern what had happened. Teacher Ernst and Young, I just saw a 2-meter-tall man with a bronze skin, who just opened the door for us. Hearing Ono Kyoko's words, Fukujiro Ornaga looked around subconsciously, but did not see Apacha. In the distance, Ma Jenksing, Lin Yan and Kenichi Shirahama who were observing saw the scene just now, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Master Ma, you didn't arrange Apacha. No, I just told him to hide. Who knew it would happen? Feeling the doubt from the disciple, Ma Jenksing immediately shook his head and denied it, but Lin Yan also knew that it was not his fault. Apacha was too simple, and it would always cause trouble if there was no one to guide him. Well, teachers are welcome to visit home, please come here, father and mother are ready. While Ernest Fukujiro and Ono Kyoko were still looking for the Apacha who had just disappeared, Miwa dressed in ordinary clothes, not the tights he wore before, and came to the two of them and invited them to the reception room. Upon seeing this, Fukujiro Ornaga coughed and reminded Kyoko Ono, then nodded at Miwa, and followed her to the reception room. Hello, I'm Mayu's father. Fenglinsi has broken teeth, and my career is flying aircraft. Aircraft. Before Ernst and young Fukujiro imagined what a professional aircraft is, he stammered and said, Air, pilot. I am Miyu's mother, Fenglinsi Jingyu, and I work as a fashion designer. Hello, I'm Fukujiro Inaga, the head teacher of Miwa Furinji, and this is Mr. Kyoko Ono, the deputy head teacher. After the two pseudo-parents, Nikki Zio and Kasaka Shiger, introduced themselves, Fukujiro Ornaga also introduced himself, and by the way introduced Ono Kyoko who was still in a daze. In this way, Miyu's home visit officially began. Hello. However, because Nigui Jersu was really too nervous, he always stammered. His appearance made the few people hiding beside him embarrassed. Master Nigui, you are so nervous. Lin Yan was also unable to complain. After all, it was the first time he had seen Nigui Jersu like this. Even Ma Jenksing, who had known him for a long time, looked at the tense Nigui Jersu as if he had never seen such a scene. Fukujiro Ornaga pushed his own glasses. He felt something was wrong. The two people in front of him didn't look like a husband and wife at all, and they didn't feel like they were Fengrinji Miwa's parents. After all, their hair color was different. Afterwards, Fukujiro Ornaga also asked Nigui Jersu several questions one after another, but they were all fooled by the tense Nigui Jersu. However, in the eyes of the few people next to him, they couldn't fool anyone at all. Ahem, I kind of want to go to the toilet, so let's depart for a while, it's rude. Nikki Zio apologized to Fukujiro Ornaga with a look of embarrassment, and then ran out of the room quickly. Escaped. Well, I ran away. I didn't expect Nigui to be shy. The three people hiding in the dark and observing the situation saw Nigui Jersu hurriedly fleeing the scene, and they couldn't help but began to complain. Really, how did Nigui Master lose the chain at a critical moment? Mayu standing beside was also a little madly complaining about Nigui Jersu in her heart, and she felt that her home visit was about to end. Then, Mrs. Fenglinsi, have you paid close attention to the learning situation of Fenglinsi students? Seeing Niyuki Zio running away, Fukujiro Ornaga hurriedly pushed his glasses, and then turned his gaze on Kasaka Tokiur. However, what he didn't expect was that Kasaka Tokiur was very proficient in saying Miwa's achievements. This surprised him. Sister Shiu is doing well. I'm saved. Seeing this scene, Miwa thanked Kasaka Shiger in her heart, but she didn't expect that Kasaka Shiger, who usually doesn't tune, would be much more reliable than Nigui Jersu at this time. Ahem, Mr. Ernst and Young, I want to go to the toilet. Ono Kyoko, who had been listening for a long time, said a word in silence. After Fukujiro Ornaga agreed, Miwa walked to her and took her to the bathroom of the dojo. Seeing Miwa's departure, Fukujiro Ornaga got serious and looked at Kasaka Tokiura with a rather serious look. You guys aren't the parents of the real Fenglincy classmates. Why do you want to tell such a lie? Don't even want to argue. I have been a teacher for so many years, and I can tell at a glance if I am a real parent. Kasaka Shigure was taken aback for a moment. She didn't expect that Miyu's head teacher had discovered the truth. After thinking about it carefully, she bent down and bowed solemnly. Teacher Ernst and Young, I hope you don't blame Miyu. That kid is just a little stupid, confused and loves face, and often feels lonely. Actually, I heard someone tell me that Fenglincy classmate and other male classmates of the school lived together. In order to investigate the truth, if it is true, the school will not sit idly by. Although Kasaka Shigure's attitude is very sincere, but Fukujiro Ornaga pushed his glasses and did not say what he wanted to do with Miwa, but said his true purpose in coming to Liangshanbo. If this is the case, there is no way. Kasaka Shigure's eyes began to show murderous look, and he took out a big sword from his clothes, looking like he was about to kill people directly here. And seeing Kasaka Shigure directly drew out the knife, Ernst and young Fukujiro was shocked. He didn't expect to see such an exciting scene. Wait, Shiyu's sister, can't do it. Just when Kasaka Shigure was about to move the knife, Lin Yan and the three rushed out to block Kasaka Shigure, for fear that she would really do it for Miwa. Lin Yan and Bai Bin, why are you here? Is it true that cohabitation is true? Lin Yan and Shirahama Kenichi are a bit speechless. After all, cohabitation is indeed a fact, but this cohabitation is not the other cohabitation. Ian, don't stop me, I don't plan to chop him, I just threaten him so that he will not tell the truth. Times two. At this moment, Kyoko Ono's scream and Apache's scream came from outside. It turned out that Kyoko Ono was going to the bathroom, and just opened the bathroom door and found Apache hiding inside. The two ran one by one and rushed directly into the reception room, disrupting the confrontation between Kasaka Shigure and the others. Look, Mr. Ernst and Young, I said there is a brawny man with a bronze skin here. Kyoko Ono also grabbed Apache's clothes to show off to Ernst and young Fukujiro. After all, she caught a pock that neither of them had discovered before. Under tension, Apache rushed directly into the reception room, making a mess, and almost bumped into Fukujiro Ornaga. There was no way, so Lin Yan had to grab Fukujiro Ornaga and led him out of the reception room. Apache is in trouble when it gets involved. Looking at Apache on the rampage and Ono Kyoko clinging to his headband, Lin Yan sighed and silently said apologized to Mei Yu, her home visit was over. On the other side, Miyu's whole body turned grayish-white. When she saw Apache ramming in the dojo, and Fukujiro Ornaga was standing beside Lin Yan on the other side, she knew that her home visit had ended in failure. Being caught by the headband, Apache, whose brain was blank at this time, rammed out of the house and rushed towards the empty space. No way, teacher, be careful yourself. Seeing Apache rushing towards them, Lin Yan turned around and instructed Ernst and young Fukujiro for a while, and then set aside his posture. Now Apache must be organized to continue the mischief, otherwise Liang Shanbo will be demolished. Taking a deep breath, when Apache rushed to Lin Yan, he directly grabbed Apache's hand sideways, and then threw Apache directly to his feet. Apache, with a dumbfounded face, finally woke up when he found himself floating in the air, but at this time he had no time to react and was directly thrown to the ground by Lin Yan. And Kyoko Ono, who was on Apache's back, was also flung out in the process, but a strong figure caught him. Elder. Just as Lin Yan was about to pick up Ono Kyoko, she found out that she was rescued by Elder, and put the startled Ono Kyoko down. Elder looked at Ornaga Fukujiro on the side, and then said with embarrassment, "Sorry, I'm late. Now, I'm Mei Yu's grandfather, the real thing." At this time, a person walked out from behind Elder. It was Chuyu at Jiayu Temple. Master Jiayu Temple, is there something you said? Miyu, who finally recovered, seemed very happy to see his grandfather's appearance. When he saw Chuyu at Misakigoshi Temple, he suddenly remembered yesterday that he had something to do, so he refused to play Miyu's father. Yeah, I knew you would mess it up a long time ago, so I specifically used my channel to call Elder back. If there is a genuine grandfather, home visits count. Kiwesi Chuyu touched her beard, smiled at Miyu, and then looked at Lin Yan to the side with a very satisfied expression. Lin Yan's actions just now show that his skills have begun to master. You must know that Apak, who is in a runaway state, is a little stronger than usual, and Lin Yan can subdue him under Apach's reaction, indicating his strength and diligence. Well, are you the genius artist who is skilled in calligraphy, painting, pottery, and sculpture, Master Chuyu at Cape Usc Temple? On the side, Ornaga Fukujiro, who saw the autumn rain at Misakigoshi Temple, approached Misakigoshi Temple as if he had seen his own idol. Well, it's me. Misakigoshi Temple's autumn rain nodded, so Fukujiro Ornaga trembled with excitement, because as a teacher of Japanese history, he was very passionate about the pursuit of art. It turns out that you are not living together here, but learning art here. I really didn't expect that this place is actually the dojo of the master of Jayu Temple. The people who calmed down sat down to communicate again after clearing the reception room. Fukujiro Ornaga also drank a sip of tea and sighed, while Apcha and Kyoko Ono apologized to each other on the other side. I'm really sorry, it's my fault to hide the teacher. Miwa on the side also apologized to Ornaga Fukujiro as if he was sitting down. After all, this incident was caused by her. It's okay, classmate Fengalin Temple. Speaking of it, I am quite envious that you can even learn art in the dojo of the master of Jayu Temple. It seems that after seeing own idol, Fukujiro Ernst & Young has completely lost the seriousness he had before. He also praised Lin Yan and several people with a smile on his face, and the corners of Lin Yan's mouth kept twitching. The home visit was finally over, and Fukujiro Ornaga and Kyoko Ono bid farewell to everyone. After seeing the teacher leave, Miwa finally breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, it's finally over. Do I think my life is going to end? How can it be so serious? The most is transfer school. Peace of mind, Miyu, even if you transfer school, I will accompany you. Then if I go to a girls' school, will you also go in with me? Quote. Looking at Mei Yu, who suddenly became skinned, Lin Yan's mouth twitched, and then Mei Yu laughed happily. Ian, in fact, even if my parents are no longer with me, I don't feel lonely anymore. Mei Yu, who had walked a few steps toward the house, stopped, then turned to look at Lin Yan. For me, it's not just my grandfather, everyone in Liang Shanpo is my family. Said that Perfect Yu rushed to the room and looked at Mei Yu's back. Lin Yan smiled knowingly. That's right, Mei Yu, I also think everyone in Liang Shanpo is like family. Speaking of which, why aren't the people from Yomi coming? Yi Shang hasn't moved either. After the home visit, Lin Yan spent another boring time because there were no interesting characters in front of him. On the other side, the people of Shinbai United, led by the leader Kenichi Shirahama, are fighting with a bad group that broke into their territory. Ultimate Swing Uppercut, by Takeda Ichiki. Falling Back and Shoulders, by Ukita Takazo. 8 Flying Without Shadows, by Haruo Nijima. Quote. When Kenichi Shirahama heard other people shouting their nirvana when they were fighting, he was a little speechless. More importantly, even the alien Haruo Nijima, who can't fight at all, has nirvana. Shouldn't it be better to think of a nirvana? After solving the bad group's team, Shirahama Kenichi walked back to Liangshanpo, thinking about his own martial skill with all his heart. After all, everyone has a nirvana, but he doesn't, and can only use ordinary martial arts against the enemy. Back at Liangshanpo, Lin Yanzheng, Meiyu and Liangwa drank tea together. Seeing Lin Yan, Shirahama Kenichi's eyes lit up. Lin Yan, I have a question for you. Quote. Do you have any nirvana? Hearing Shirahama Kenichi's nirvana, Lin Yan was still at a loss. He didn't know what he was doing, but he still answered Kenichi's question. Yes, what's wrong with Kenichi? Can you teach me nirvana? Lin Yan's mouth twitched when he looked at Shirahama Kenichi's expectant eyes, but he nodded, got up and walked to the side of a huge rock, and then looked back at Kenichi. This is one of the special moves I created. Although it hasn't been completely perfected yet, it can still be used as a special move. You look forward to it. Facing the look of Shirahama Kenichi's expectant eyes, Lin Yan pierced the horse stance and sank his right hand on his waist. After taking a deep breath, his eyes lighted up and his right fist blasted fiercely. Boom! With a loud noise, the stone that was almost two-sized one big shattered directly into fine sand. Lin Yan, who let out a sigh, retracted his posture, and then turned to look at Shirahama Kenichi. How about this nirvana? It took me a long time to achieve this level. I think this is too difficult for me, I'll go find the masters. Shirahama Ken's mouth twitched, looked at the stone that had just been beaten into fine sand, and solemnly rejected the idea of learning from Lin Yan. Let's not talk about whether he can learn it or not. Is this power too powerful? He wants a handsome nirvana, not really to kill. Leaving Lin Yan, who was disappointed because Shirahama Kenichi didn't want to learn, Shirahama Kenichi found the rebellious ghost who was drinking. Master Nigui, do you have any nirvana skills you can teach me? Nirvana. Well, that kind of very strong and handsome nirvana. Oh, I got it. Nigui Jersu, who took another sip of wine so suddenly, came directly to the sandbag, then turned to Shirahama Kenichi and said, Kenichi, this is my nirvana, you look forward to it. Aiming at the sandbag in front of him, Nigui Jersu directly swiped an ordinary-looking straight fist, and then slammed the sandbag through a big hole. More importantly, it was clear that a big hole was smashed out of the sandbag. There is no shaking at all. This is my nirvana. It doesn't move sandstorms, and can easily solve the enemy with one blow. It's too dangerous. After thinking about it, Kenichi Shirahama still refused to learn Nigui Jersu's nirvana, and he turned around and left, leaving a disappointed look of Nigui Jersu. Master Ma, do you have any nirvana? A particularly powerful one. Xiaojian, do you want to learn nirvana? Okay, come with me. Bringing Kenichi Shirahama to the hot spring deep in the back mountain forest, Ma Jianxing squatted down, put his hand in the hot spring, and then hit it down with a palm, directly hitting all the water in this small hot spring from the air. There was a light rain. This is my nirvana, soaked in the palm of the water mirror. How about it, Xiaojian, do you want to learn it? Ma Jianxing looked back at Shirahama Kenichi, looking at him confidently. After all, this trick is handsome and strong, and Shirahama Kenichi will definitely like it. No, Master Ma, I can't learn this kind of tricks at first glance. I'll go find someone else. What? Shirahama Kenichi turned and left again, leaving Ma Jianxing with a disappointed look on his face. Special move. Kenichi will follow me to learn special move, Appa. Hearing that Shirahama Kenichi wanted to learn nirvana skills, Apache was quite happy, because learning martial arts with Apache is easy to lose his life, so Shirahama often avoids Apache. Taking out a hug and throwing the Jizo, Apache shouted, Appa kick, and kicked the Jizo directly into the air. Is there any difference between kicks in normal times? Seeing the Jizo statue being kicked, Kenichi Shirahama couldn't feel the difference between kicks in normal times. Appa, this kick has a name, it's called Appa kick. Although Apache tried very hard to explain one sentence, Shirahama Kenichi didn't realize the ultimate skill of this kick. Stone statue, it didn't fall. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Hearing Kasaka Shigeru's reminder, Kenichi Shirahama realized that the stone statue that Apache had just kicked into the air hadn't fallen from the air. It would have fallen into pieces in normal times. Appa, because the stone statue turned into powder in the air. Forget it, Apache, this trick is too dangerous, I still don't learn it, I don't want to kill people. Shirahama Kenichi sighed and was about to turn around and leave. That, and mine, nirvana. No need, Shigeru miss, I don't use weapons. Kenichi Shirahama waved his hand and left the courtyard, while Kasaka Shigeru looked disappointed. When she saw a leaf fall, her eyes suddenly sharpened, and she slashed at the leaf with a knife. Shang Saka Ryu draws a sword, strips and cuts each other, the leaves directly changed from a thin leaf to two thinner ones. I want to learn nirvana. That's right, Master Chiyu Temple, everyone has a nirvana, and I want to have one too, but can you teach me a nirvana that won't kill people? Shirahama Kenichi looked sincere. After all, the nirvana of the people he had approached before was too dangerous, and the enemy would be killed at every turn. Well, yes, I will show you my nirvana. After that, Chiyu Temple Chuyu took out a wooden figure, and then went down with a set of tricks, and directly folded the shape of the wooden figure into a weird look. How about, Kenichi, this nirvana, sultry formation destroys the underworld, is a combination of throwing skills, critical attacks and joint skills. More importantly, he will subdue people without causing him to lose his life. I think the other party would think it would be better to die. Shirahama Kenichi looked at Misakigoshi Temple Chuyu with a black line, then patted his forehead, and left the room of Misakigoshi Temple Chuyu speechlessly. Ah, Nirvana, why are everyone in Liangshanpo's Nirvana so weird? After searching for a Nirvana, Shirahama Kenichi was extremely disappointed, and his spirit was decadent. Come down. Kenichi. One hand grabbed Shirahama Kenichi's shoulder, and he looked back. It was Lin Yan. Lin Yan looked at the lost Shirahama Ken and smiled, then dragged him to the corridor. Kenichi, you don't have to worry about such things as Nirvana. Both of us are Liang Shanpo's inner disciples, so we are learning the many martial skills of your masters. However, there is one thing you should know. The martial artist goes to the back. You want to get out of the road of own, so Kenichi's Nirvana skills should be created by yourself. Listen to what Lin Yan said. Kenichi Shirahama also sighed deeply. Although he knew Lin Yan was right, is he really capable of creating his own Nirvana? Looking at Shirahama Kenichi, who was still looking heavy, Lin Yan shrugged and patted Shirahama Kenichi's shoulder. When he looked up at the owner, Lin Yan said, Kenichi, you want to create Nirvana? Then, I will take you to a good place tomorrow. Quote. Although he didn't know where Lin Yan was talking about, Kenichi Shirahama nodded his head in anticipation. Chapter 71. Lin Yan, can you really practice Nirvana here? Seeing the scene in front of him, Ken Shirahama's mouth kept twitching. After all, this is different from the special training he thought at the beginning. Of course, after all, training in a different environment, sometimes you may get unexpected gains. Lin Yan smiled and glanced at Shirahama Kenichi, and then Elder, who was lying on the beach chair by the side, also echoed, yes, Xiao also, it's pretty good here, I think you will gain something. Looking at the people around Liang Shanbo in a swimsuit, the twitching corners of Kenichi Shirahama's mouth couldn't stop. Auni sauce, come and play. Lin Yan paid for the water park this time. Of course, I also brought Liang Shanpo's other friends, Ma Zhengxing's daughter Ma Lianghua, and little sister Shirahama Suika from Kenichi Shirahama. Although Kenichi Shirahama wanted to play with little sister, it is rare to come to the water park once, but unfortunately, the masters did not intend to let him go. Because Lin Yan, who had already become a master, didn't need them to teach much now. It's more for him to find his own way, so everyone who is too idle for a while can only focus on cultivating the second disciple Kenichi Shirahama. Of course, because Shirahama Kenichi's talent and Lin Yan are completely at two extremes, compared with Lin Yan's rapid progress mainly due to the powerful physical strengthening potions produced by the system, Shirahama Kenichi's growth is quite slow. Now it has not yet reached the stage where it can be launched into chi circulation. Quickly, keep kicking under the current. Being pulled by Nigui Jersu to the bottom of a man-made small waterfall, practicing kicking under the water, although it was difficult for him, he still clenched his teeth. Seeing his own big brother training while not playing with him, Shirahama Hoang pouted, and then ran to Apcha to play with him. Miu, do you want to try that? Mayu glanced at the waterslide that Lin Yan was pointing at, with a look of confusion. Let's come to Bibi to climb from below to the top, and whoever takes less time. You really can't help it. Mayu shrugged and looked at Lin Yan and laughed. Then, the two began to play while competing, and Ma Lianghua joined in, not to be outdone, and the three had a great time. Does this really work out a Nirvana? Shirahama Kenichi, repeating the kicking action, boredly looked at the people on the other side who were playing happily, and sighed deeply. He felt that he had no idea about the Nirvana. Kenichi, be serious. The most basic thing for a martial artist is the bottom plate, which is waist strength and foot strength. If your bottom plate is unstable, it is easy to be beaten by others. So you are like this, kick under water pressure. Legs can effectively exercise your waist strength and foot strength. Seeing Shirahama Kenichi practicing as he started to lose consciousness, his kicking speed slowed down. Nigui Jersu directly yelled at him, shocked Shirahama Kenichi, and when he recovered, he hurriedly should then continue to practice. Kenichi boy, look at that boy Lin Yan, even if he is having fun, he is actually training. Suddenly I heard Nigui Jersu say that Kenichi Shirahama was a little silly. No, aren't they just playing? Where is the training? Seeing Kenichi Shirahama's unbelieving gaze, Nigurjirsu grinned, and then pointed to the waterslide that Lin Yan and the others had just competed with. Kenichi, haven't you noticed? In that kind of pipe, not only is there a downward flow, but the pipe wall is smooth. To climb from below to above, the most important thing is waist strength and foot strength. Only after these two have been practiced at home, you can climb up like them easily. Of course, you can actually do it now, ha ha ha. After all, it is Liang Shanbo's number 2 disciple, and he is still the focus of attention now. Even if it is far less than Lin Yan, in fact, Johnny's strength will surpass most of his peers, at least now he will not lose to the captains of Shinbai United. Sure enough, after practicing kicks for a period of time, Shirahama Kenichi was called by Ma Jiangxing to climb the pipe. Seeing Shirahama Kenichi working hard, Lin Yan showed a relieved smile. How is it? Have you confirmed it? Yes, it's her. That's good, let's go. Just when Lin Yan and the three were playing happily by the pool, two people walked towards them and saw someone approaching. The three turned around and looked over. When they saw them, Ma Lianghua's face changed. The two approaching looked at each other, and then quickly rushed towards Ma Lianghua. Lin Yan directly blocked Ma Lianghua when he saw this. However, the two rushing over did not care, and directly raised their fists and struck Lin Yan. Oh, the corners of Lin Yan's mouth curled up, and he felt the chi ripples on the two of them, not very strong, so he directly condensed the ripples, and when the two reached Lin Yan, he directly strengthened his body parts. The two succeeded in a blow, and they were just about to make a mockery. Unexpectedly, Lin Yan laughed at them. When they took their hands back, they gently patted Owen's chest and said, "Did you not eat? It's too soft, I don't even feel a bit." Lin Yan's words were not very harmful, but they were extremely insulting. One of them was angry and wanted to rush over, but was stopped by the other calmly. Don't be impulsive, depending on the situation, we are not his opponents, and don't forget our mission. Under the persuasion of his companions, the man calmed down, and then looked directly at Lin Yan, the anger in his eyes undiminished. We were ordered by Master Baimei to bring back Miss Ma Lianghua, and please don't stop him from Liang Shanbo. The person who calmed down told Lin Yan and the three of them their purpose, and then Lin Yan and Mei Yu directly turned to look at Ma Lianghua who was hiding behind Lin Yan. Seeing everyone looking at him, Ma Lianghua touched his head in embarrassment, and spit out his tongue at Lin Yan. Actually, under the gaze of everyone, Ma Lianghua explained the reason. Because she has been running to Liangshanbo recently, although Father Ma Liang doesn't care about her, but she is not in the restaurant for a long time, not staying by her side. He thinks this is too dangerous, and then he sent his disciple to bring her back. Of course, the real reason is because the old man Ma Liang treats Ma Lianghua as his own biological daughter. The daughter who has been raising for so long suddenly starts to run out and refuses to go home. The parents will always be worried. After understanding the reason, Ma Liang's disciples, Luzon son of the 7-star Mantis Gate, and Zug Kong, the Jiaomen Gate, secretly hoped that Ma Lianghua would follow them back honestly. Unfortunately, Ma Lianghua, who didn't want to leave Lin Yan at all, resolutely rejected them. Speaking of which, when they heard their names, Lin Yan couldn't help but began to spit out frantically. This name is obviously a plagiarism. Although I know that the Japanese like the history of the Three Kingdoms very much, is it really okay to pirate the names of Lu Xuan and Zhuge Kongming flagrantly? And these two goods are Chinese. This world also has the history of the Three Kingdoms, haven't their names been complained by classmates? Lin Yan, who was frantically complaining in his brain for a while, didn't change his face, watching Ma Lianghua unwilling to leave, and the two opposite people didn't want to give up. His eyes rolled, and he thought of paying attention. Let's do it. It's good for the two of you to compete with one person. If you win, Lianghua will follow you back. If you lose, she will make the decision. Of course, it doesn't matter if you go together. How do you feel? Turning to look at Ma Lianghua, she looked at Lin Yan's eyes and decided to believe him, so she nodded in agreement. But Lu Xuanzhen and Zhuge Konggen couldn't help it now. Lin Yan stood in front of them, and they couldn't take Ma Lianghua away, so they nodded and agreed to Lin Yan's suggestion. Kenichi, come here, something good. With the agreement of both parties, Lin Yan directly called Shirahama Kenichi who was undergoing special training in the water. Is there a problem? Hearing Lin Yan's call, Shirahama Kenichi ran over immediately, wondering what good things were waiting for him. Looking at Shirahama Kenichi's expectant gaze, Lin Yan smiled and patted him on the shoulder, then pointed at Lu Xuanzin and Zub Kongan who were standing opposite, and said to Shirahama Kenichi, Kenichi, you look, I specially found 2 opponents for you as training partners, isn't it a good thing? Ah, Lin Yan, you cheated me, I don't want it. With a look of disappointment, Shirahama Kenichi refused Lin Yan's request. As soon as he was about to go back, he heard Lin Yan say, don't you want to create special moves? Seeing Shirahama Kenichi turning around and looking at him suspiciously, Lin Yan smiled, Kenichi, a martial artist cannot grow up behind closed doors. You can only make rapid progress when you continue to fight against opponents who are evenly matched or even stronger than you. Quote, did you see the 2 people on the opposite side? They are martial arts masters from China. If you fight with them, maybe you can have a clue about your own road nirvana skills. Although he didn't want to listen to Lin Yan to fight with those 2 people who were not easy to provoke at first glance, Shirahama Kenichi felt that Lin Yan made sense, so he nodded helplessly, indicating that he would fight. Oh, there seems to be some excitement to watch. The Lengshan Poda people who have been paying attention to Lin Yan's side are also interested in this matchup at this moment, and they all shifted their sights. Liang Shanbo's disciple Shirahama Kenichi. 7-star Mantis Gate Luzon Sun. Poke the Foot Gate Zub Kong Dark. Now that the competition has been decided, the 3 of them performed a ceremony, and then reported each other's names. After the ceremony was over, the 3 of them directly set up a posture. The next moment, Lu Xuanzin directly rushed up to fight with Shirahama Kenichi, and the 2 of you came and went to block each other's attack. However, after all, Shirahama Kenichi was better, because he learned enough martial arts, so with his flexible choice, Lu Xuanzin was quickly repelled. Seeing that his comrades were repelled, Zub Kongan couldn't stand it anymore, and they couldn't lose. So, he took over Lu Xuanzin's position, and Shirahama Kenichi began to fist. The effort to poke the foot gate is not in the hands, but in the feet. Kenichi Shirahama won't lose, right? Ma Lianhua, who was watching the battle, was a little anxious to see that Kenichi Shirahama did not pay attention to Zub Kongan's feet. After all, the victory or defeat of this competition is related to her freedom. However, Lin Yan touched her head. Ma Lianhua immediately became like a cat, very cute, attracted cat lover Miu, and couldn't help but touch her head. Don't worry, Kenichi won't lose. Anyway, he's a disciple of Liang Shanpo. If he loses, he will double his training when he goes back. Lin Yan told Lianhua not to worry, and Lianhua was no longer focused on this side, but stared at Mei Yu firmly. What did you just do? No, I couldn't hold it back for a while. Even being touched by his own love rival, Ma Lianhua is very angry now, and the consequences are serious. Unfortunately, she can only think about it. In front of so many people, she still cares about own face. The screen returns to Kenichi Shirahama. In the confrontation with Zub Kongan's fist, Shirahama Kenichi clearly felt that Zub Kongan's fist was not as powerful as Luzon Sun. When he was puzzled, Zub Kongan turned around and quickly moved from bottom to top with one foot. Kicked up. Originally, Zub Kong secretly thought he would win. After all, ordinary martial artists with such a concealed kick couldn't respond, but unfortunately, he was facing him. I saw Kenichi before he kicked it up. He directly raised one of his own legs and faced them fiercely, making Zub Kong's secret blow back without success. As a disciple of Liang Shanbo, who lives and dies in Jones Daren's the underworld training every day, Shirahama Kenichi's reflex nerves have long been trained to be quite strong, and how is it possible? The strength of this guy's feet. Before Zub Kong could think about it, Shirahama gritted his teeth one by one and pushed his kick back directly. Zub Kongan lost his balance directly. Shirahama Kenichi directly stepped closer, and then hit Zub Kongan's abdomen with a knee kick, knocking him out a few meters, and fell to the ground temporarily unable to move. Kenichi's waist strength and foot strength have long been exercised, but he didn't notice it, so I said that I don't need to worry. Seeing Shirahama Kenichi easily knocked down one person, Lin Yan turned her head and smiled confidently at Ma Lianhua, which made her directly shy. Well, although Kenichi's progress has been slower, he still has a solid foundation. This waist strength and foot strength are not bad. The experts who watched here not far away were also communicating, and they were quite satisfied with Kenichi's performance. Seeing that Zhuge Kongan was defeated, Lu Xuanzin became angry and rushed directly to Shirahama Kenichi's side, and started to attack with both hands and feet. However, when he kicked Shirahama Kenichi with his foot fiercely, Kenichi did not move at all. On the contrary, as Johnny pushed hard, Lu Xuanzin tripped and lost his balance. However, unlike Zhuge Kongan, he moved faster. When his body lost his balance, he directly took Shirahama Kenichi's hand, and both of them fell into the pool. However, in the pool, Lu Zansun directly took advantage of Shirahama Kenichi's inability to move in the water and launched an offensive underwater. However, Kenichi did not give up. Even if it was difficult to punch underwater, he still blocked it with difficulty. Lu Xuanzин's attack. Seeing the two falling into the pool together, and then continuing to fight underwater, Lin Yan was taken aback for a moment. No, what are they doing? Isn't this a competition? Why are you still desperate? In the underwater battle that lasted for half a minute, the two of them were actually a little uncomfortable, but at this time neither of the two wanted to admit defeat, so they continued to fight under the pressure. Enough, let's learn from each other. Why do you want to go to the water? Feeling that the two of them were approaching their limit, Elder stood up directly. After a big sip, he exploded and combed the 10-meter-long swimming pool with a kick. The tourists who came here were shocked. I thought it was a magic show. As the pool was forcibly divided into two halves by Elder, he rushed directly in and brought both Lu Xuanzin and Shirahama Kenichi out and returned to the edge of the pool. Ahem. After all fighting underwater, the two who finally breathed the air coughed, and then glanced at each other. As soon as they were about to continue fighting, they were stopped by Ma Lianhua, who rushed over. Enough, this is the end of your duel. Lianhua miss. Horse miss. Seeing Ma Lianhua appear, the two stopped the action they had just prepared to shoot. Seeing that they were not ready to fight, Ma Lianhua exhaled, and then stared at Lu Zansun. You guy, you are so desperate, this is just a discussion. Sorry, Miss Lianhua, just got up. Seeing Lu Zansun apologized when he was being held accountable, Ma Lianhua was so angry that he had no choice but to stamp his foot severely. Oh, this is the end of this competition, I will follow you back. Seeing Ma Lianhua agreed to go back, Lu Zansun finally breathed a sigh of relief. After all, he could go back and explain to Master Baimei. The duel was finally over and things were settled. Ma Lianhua waved his hand to Lin Yan reluctantly, saying that he would follow Lu Zansun back to Chinatown after he would come again next time. Looking at Kenichi Shirahama, who was still thinking about him next to him, Lin Yan patted him on the shoulder and said with a puzzled look at him, although it is over halfway, I think you won, Kenichi. And, you are the one. People who have studied martial arts for half a year have beaten those who started martial arts from elementary school. I think you are already very strong. Hearing Lin Yan's praise, Shirahama Kenichi touched his head embarrassedly. I didn't expect it, I was quite strong. Strong ass, I didn't beat that guy underwater. Kenichi, you have to do more underwater special training in the future. The Nigui Jersu on the side gave Shirahama a blow without hesitation, ignoring his desperate gaze, and everyone left the water park with a smile. The unremarkable days passed day by day. Yomi was slow to act, and Lin Yan was so happy. After all, he is still slowly integrating his own martial arts. Besides, his mission goal is actually not Yomi, but their masters, the Dark One Shadow 9 punches, then of course the stronger he is, the better, otherwise how to fight. Speaking of it, I don't know if Lin Yan's ability to fool is too strong or the last duel made Shirahama Kenichi a small success. He successfully used his nirvana without a beat in training. Finally, with his own nirvana, Kenichi Shirahama has been very happy these days, and of course, very desperate. Because Nigui Jersu did what he said, with the consent of other experts, it really made Shirahama Kenichi regular training in the water, which made him miserable. At the end of the training day, Lin Yan and Bai Bin Jianyi were sitting in the corridor drinking tea. I don't know if they were affected by the people in Liang Shanpo. Lin Yan, who never drank tea in the past, slowly fell in love with tea. While the two were drinking tea and chatting, Elder sneaked in over the wall holding a box from the side, and looked around as he walked, obviously guilty of conscience. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Lin Yan and Bai Bin looked at each other, the corners of their mouths slowly curled up, and then put down the teacup, followed Elder quietly, watching him sneak into the room. I don't know if it's because of Elder's guilty conscience. Lin Yan and the others were not found at all. After waiting outside for a while, Lin Yan was just about to go there when he saw Apcha walking to the door of Elder's room with Othello. Push open the door. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. When the door was suddenly opened, Elder was taken aback, turned his head and saw that it was Apacha, and he was relieved. Ahem, why did Apacha come to me? Appa, no one can play Othello with me now, so I came to the old man to play with you. Elder, what is this? Just as Elder was dealing with Apak, Lin Yan and the two slipped behind Elder. Lin Yan suddenly started, took the scroll in Elder's hand, and smiled at the startled Elder. Elder calmed down when he saw his own disciple. He stood up with a guilty conscience and walked to the door to take a look outside. After seeing no other people, he sat down again and glanced at the two disciples before speaking slowly. This is a painting of birds and beasts, but I bought it for 100,000 yen. 100,000 yen. Elder, Liang Shanbo's finances are so bad, you still go to buy this kind of thing, don't you be afraid that Miyu knows. When Kenichi Shirahama heard Elder say that the thing in his hand cost 100,000 yen, he was shocked, and then looked at Elder speechlessly with an embarrassed face. Ahem, there is no way, this is my hobby, I bought it subconsciously, so don't let Miyu know about it. Elder raised a finger and placed it on his mouth to tell the two disciples not to tell Miyu. However, after Lin Yan and Shirahama glanced together, Lin Yan turned his head and looked at Elder. This is not okay, I'm going to tell Miyu, you bought a painting of birds and beasts for 100,000 yen, completely ignoring Liang Shanbo's finances. Don't do this, let me tell you why I like bird and beast drama paintings, and become a fanatical collection of bird and beast drama paintings. And this matter is also related to Apacha. Quote. Appa. Apacha looked dumbfounded, but saw Elder preparing to tell a story, so he quieted down, ready to listen to the story. Seeing Apacha preparing to listen to the story, Lin Yan sighed. Since you say that, Elder, then we'll listen to it. 10 years ago. At that time, Elder took the 6-year-old Xiao Miu to travel around the world and practice, and from time to time he would accept some commissions to make money. After all, they also wanted to live. This is also what Elder said to Miu. Grandpa, our food is almost done, do you have any money? Ahem, don't be afraid, Miu, we should be coming to the next village soon, and then we can help the people in the village to change some food. Seeing the worry on his granddaughter's face, Elder gave a quick relief, and then took Xiao Meiyu all the way. Finally arrived near the village. However, the village looked quite poor and backward. Moreover, they did not see a child here. Just as Miwa was wondering, they suddenly surrounded a bunch of villagers with holdings in their hands. Farm tools, attacking Elder. However, after all, it was a martial artist who wanted to see these villagers easily brought down. They didn't even cause skin trauma, just let them lie on the ground and scream. Seeing that Elder was so strong, the remaining villagers did not dare to approach him. Knowing that Elder said to find the village chief, someone took him and Xiao Meiyu to a dilapidated house. Well, you are so powerful. You must be a powerful martial artist. Actually, I want to ask you for one thing. Of course, we will be prepared to pay. The elderly village chief took out a little bit of cash, which was very small, but Elder didn't care. Instead, he looked at the village chief and said, if I'm not mistaken, is it with your village? Not related to children. Yes, in fact, a group of people came to our village before and not only robbed us of our money, but also took away the children from our village. Moreover, I heard that the group will go to sea tomorrow, sell the children abroad. So, I beg you to help us, at least, please bring those children back. As he said, the village chief cried, and the women in the village beside him also cried. Most of them were the mothers of the kidnapped children. Upon seeing this, Miu clenched her small fist, and just about to speak, Elder slapped the table directly and stood up, looking at the bones of the villagers in front of him, and solemnly said, be comfortable, at the latest tomorrow morning, those children will be brought back, and, for those human trafficker groups and leaders, I will keep them from seeing the sun tomorrow morning. Then I beg you, but please also note that those people have a very powerful bodyguard called Apacha Papacha, please be careful. Relax, you just wait for the good news. After making a promise to the villagers, Elder took Xiao Miu and left in the eyes of the villagers, expectation, and set off toward the port. When he came near the port, he smoothly eliminated a few bullies who were bullying others. Elder asked Miu to stay nearby. He went to observe the surrounding situation first, and Xiao Meiyu nodded. Coming to the nearby hillside tree alone, Miu took out her own lunch, a few rice balls. While she was eating happily, she suddenly found a man with a hood sitting next to the tree. He seemed to smell the scent of rice balls. He subconsciously swallowed his saliva, but he was embarrassed to speak, so he sat under the tree and held his knees silently. Well, if you don't mind, let's eat together. Although she couldn't see her face clearly, Miwa could feel happy emotions from the person who got the rice ball, so the two of them sat under the tree and enjoyed the food happily. Seeing the man next to him stretched out a hand with some rice grains in his palm, then a little bird didn't care about the stranger's breath at all, stopped on his palm, and began to peck the rice grains. Seeing this scene, Meiyu felt quite surprised. She clearly felt that this person gave her a strong but gentle appearance, and the little animal was not afraid of him at all. He was really an incredible person, like an angel. Hey, Apcha, what are you doing here? Come here. After hearing someone call his name, the man who was still communicating with Xiaoniao got up and left, and when he left, he gave Meiyu a cherry. When Miu heard the name, she was stunned. She didn't expect that the person who was just beside her was the bodyguard of the traffickers, but she felt that Apcha was not a bad person. At night, looking at the freighter in the distance, Elder looked at Meiyu, and then let her stay here. He would be back in half an hour at most. Xiao Meiyu nodded and watched Elder walk directly to the freighter. Apacha. Looking at the cherries that Apacha gave her in her hand, Xiao Meiyu ate it in one bite. So sweet. Looking at the freighter in the distance, Xiao Meiyu decided to go and help. She felt that Apak should be different from those bad guys, so she was going to save Apak. The radar shows that an unknown object is approaching the freighter. Can people on deck see what it is? Yes, it's a human. What? The men of the human traffickers group on the deck looked at Elder, who was walking directly over the sea. Everyone was stunned. When Elder vacated and landed on the freighter, the group of talents reacted and swarmed towards Elder. However, this group of people did not threaten Elder at all. Elder only moved a few times, and this group of people was directly knocked down. Look at me, human shuriken. Looking at the team coming out of the cabin and rushing towards him to support, Elder directly grabbed a person, then threw him over by throwing a shuriken, and directly knocked down the people who came to support. Then, a thick arm stopped the human shuriken that Elder had thrown. After putting down the man in his hand, Apacha and Elder began to look at each other. Oh, this momentum is really a master. Looking at Apacha on the opposite side, Elder smiled, and then rushed directly. Apacha was not to be outdone, and the two directly collided. As you came and I fought for a while, the two entered the cabin from the deck. Although Apak was very strong, Elder was even better and easily suppressed Apak. As the battle continued, Apacha's attack became more and more dangerous, and the whole person's momentum became stronger and stronger. Even Elder was accidentally attacked by Apak. Countdown jab 4, 3, 2, 1. As the battle intensified, Elder also began to use his self-style martial arts. As a jab, with the change of 4 fingers to 1 finger, Apacha was directly attacked by the defense, and finally, in Elder's record, under the continuous attacks of Shadowless Infinite Jab, Apacha was hit into the air by Elder without any resistance. After landing, he vomited blood and looked at Elder cautiously. However, just when the two were about to decide the victory or defeat, the leader of the trafficker, Kesko, who had given Apacha a meal, appeared, and pointed a gun at a little girl in his hand. Grandpa, I'm sorry. Miwa sneaked aboard the boat to help. She accidentally found the place where the kidnapped children were being held, but was found by Cosco during the rescue and had to be arrested obediently under the threat of a pistol. Old man, don't move around, or I won't guarantee your granddaughter's comfort. If something happens to Meiyu, I will let you be buried with you. Seeing Miwa threatening him, Elder's aura began to erupt with anger. And while pointing the gun at Miu, Kesko threatened Elder and at the same time instructed Apcha to kill Elder. Unfortunately, Apacha was unwilling to do so, and even persuaded Keskike to release Miu, who had given him food. Apcha, it's useless, you guys shoot him quickly and kill him directly. Seeing that Apcha didn't listen to On's words, Kesko directly greeted On's subordinates to shoot down. Originally, his men thought that Apcha was still down there, but hesitated, but when the boss spoke, they could only point at Elder and Elder. Apache shot together. Oh, dare to come to my troubles, you were really looking for death. Kesko turned his head and prepared to take Miu away, but he didn't expect that in the next second, Elder disappeared directly under the attack of the gunner and appeared behind him. What? When facing a martial arts expert, you can't shift your eyesight. Before he could shoot, Kesko was directly hit by Elder with a dead heart shock wave. This is one of Elder's stunts. It uses a violent impact to make people physical, amnesia, and can even use chi to rewrite personality. When Kesko was knocked down, several other men who shot were also knocked down by Apache, who jumped up. Miu thought they were going to continue fighting, and quickly stopped her grandfather. At this moment, there was a sudden explosion on the freighter. Elder, who found that the freighter's condition was not so good, hurriedly greeted Apache, rescued the kidnapped children and put them in a waterproof box. At Apache's request, the traffickers who were knocked down fainted were also packed in boxes to prevent them from drowning. As the morning sun shattered on the sea, the children abducted by human traffickers at the port were safely taken to the shore. They returned to the village with these children and some belongings. The villagers were very grateful to Elder, but when they were ready to give Elder more money, Elder refused, as long as they were prepared to pay him at the beginning. Grandpa, that person has been following us. After leaving the village, Elder and Miwa continued to embark on a journey of world governance, but Miu glanced back and found that Apache was also following him. When they saw Miwa looking towards Own, they waved to her. Don't worry about him, he will leave after a while. Elder didn't care about Apache following them. In his opinion, Apache would give up soon. As a result, Apache followed me across the ocean like this, and came to Liangshanbo. It was a long time to trouble me when I was at the customs. Appa, hearing Elder's words like this, Apache just touched his head. I'm afraid that in his opinion, he doesn't know what giving up is. Although this story sounds like it's made up, and how could your Elder move make people amnesia, the most important thing is that the story you are telling has nothing to do with the painting of birds and beasts. After listening to this story, Lin Yan didn't say anything, but Shirahama Kenichi questioned instead. After all, he couldn't imagine the principle of Elder's dead heart shockwave, let alone understand what it had to do with bird and beast paintings. Oh, this, because when I was fighting with Apache, I suddenly discovered that the lines of the monkey painted in the bird and beast show are really beautiful. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Before Kenichi Shirahama could react, Apache on the side also said, speaking of which, I seem to think of rabbits in my mind at that time. After speaking, Apache and Elder suddenly laughed. Shirahama Kenichi was speechless, stood up and said, I don't believe Elder, I'd better go and talk to Miwa. Quote. Death heart shockwave. Just as Shirahama Kenichi was about to walk out of the room, Elder sent a death shock wave to Shirahama Kenichi, and then Shirahama Kenichi fell straight down. Looking at Shirahama Kenichi, Lin Yan took a deep breath, and then silently prayed for him. Kenichi Shirahama, who woke up, really did not remember what happened before. Although Lin Yan knew it, he honestly said in front of Elder that he would not say it, so Elder did not attack him either. However, seeing Elder's dead heart shockwave turned out to be so powerful, Lin Yan really wanted to learn from Elder, and he didn't know if Elder would teach it. Do you want to follow me? Well, Elder, I am very interested in your interesting moves. Ha ha ha, is it? Seeing Lin Yan found him and said that he wanted to follow him to learn his Fengolin temple tricks, Elder was very happy. After all, as a disciple of Liang Shanpo, Lin Yan's performance has always been in his eyes. Moreover, the feelings between Lin Yan and his granddaughter Fenglinsi Miu clearly surpassed friendship. Fenglinsi Hayato is not the kind of character who can beat Mandarin ducks, at most he does not agree with Mayu marrying at such a young age. However, if you want to learn, then take Xiaojian, it just happens that he has reached that period too. Elder did not oppose Lin Yan's study request. Although he had never accepted a disciple or taught two disciples, he still paid close attention to the situation of these two disciples. What, take Ian and Kenichi to the special training? Or go to the Dark Valley? After gathering the people in Liangshanpo, Elder said his thoughts. He didn't expect that Kyu Temple Chuyu could not maintain his calm expression when he heard the name Dark Black Valley. Autumn Rain, is Dark Valley any strange place? The other masters were not particularly aware of the situation in Dark Valley, so they focused their search on Kyu Temple Chuyu, but he did not answer the masters, and kept their eyes on Elder. Elder, are you sure? Are you really going to take the two of them to Dark Valley? Of course, after all, I have to teach Xiaoyan some skills, as well as special training for Kenichi. There is no other place where there is a Dark Valley. Kenichi, although Kyu Temple Chuyu was worried, but considering that Elder was taking care of him, after shook his head for himself, he agreed to let Elder take Liang Shanpo's two disciples to set off. Then, let's go. Goodbye, masters. After taking their clothes and luggage, the three of them said goodbye to everyone at the gate of Liangshanpo, and then Lin Yan and the two followed Elder to go to their special training location Dark Valley. Speaking of it, it's Lin Yan that you want to learn martial arts with me, so why should I follow? Who knows? This is what Elder asked. Kenichi, you still don't resist. On the way, Shirahama Kenichi couldn't help but spit out a few words. Lin Yan smiled and comforted. After all, it is always good to have someone accompanied by special training, at least not boring. Moreover, Lin Yan knew why Elder would take Shirahama Kenichi to Dark Valley, because Kenichi had recently reached a critical point, and it was time to start choosing which martial artist to become. Elder took him to Dark Valley in order to let him and the disciple of Liang Shanbo step into the Shiradao Fist Saint Ogata Ikujisai, and then see if Kenichi would choose the way of movement. Different from Lin Yan, because Lin Yan made too fast progress, and there was still a system escorting him, so Lin Yan logically mastered the two chis, and at the beginning, everyone was shocked. After all, any disciple who suddenly had both types of chi was shocked. Even if the experts agreed to instruct Lin Yan to use the two types of chi, he was not allowed to activate them at the same time. After observing for a long period of time, I found that Lin Yan did not have any problems. I can only say that he was exceptionally talented, and the experts did not continue to pay attention. Especially after Lin Yan learned the ripples, the chi in Lin Yan's body was basically assimilated by the ripples due to the effect of the ripples. Although it could still exert a special effect like moving or static air, Lin Yan was in the air. There are basically no restrictions or hidden dangers. When the three of Elder headed to the Dark Valley, the people in Liangshanbo gathered together again. Okay. Now Chuyu, you should tell us about the Dark Valley. Ma Jiangxing and Nigui Jersu are still very concerned about this. After all, they still care about own disciples. Meiyu on the side looked at them serious, and suddenly became worried about the few people who were not worried about the special training. Dark Valley, located in the hinterland of Japan, is a virgin forest that has not been developed. Because of its special environment, many ascetics have trained in it before. Of course, this is not the most important thing. After all, there is Elder. Life safety can still be guaranteed. He picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea silently. Although Kyu Temple Chuyu still had no expression on his face, anyone who knew him could see his seriousness and worry. Elder guarantees the danger in the forest, so why are you so worried? Kenichi, recently it's time to learn how to activate his chi. Now he needs to choose which type of martial artist to become. Originally, I was going to slowly guide Kenichi. Looking at Miyakigoshi Temple Chuyu who sighed, Nigui Jerju's expression also became serious. Are you afraid of Kenichi Kid going on the path of a moving martial artist? Of course, Nigui, you also know how dangerous a moving martial artist is, and one who is not careful will set foot on Shiradao. Chuyu's voice suddenly became louder, and Meiyu was startled by the side. Lin Yan is so talented that he has mastered two kinds of chi without guidance. Now, there is no need to worry about him. But Johnny, I am afraid that he will be pressured by Lin Yan, and go up that way. Originally, I was not very worried about Kenichi, but there is still a person in Dark Valley. I think Elder's purpose is him. Feeling the worry of Kyu Temple Chuyu, Ma Jiangxing's eyes also changed, and he muttered, is it him? Yes, it's him, Ogata Ikanzai. Hearing this name, Nigui Zio and Apacha, Shigur and others were a little confused. Last time I seemed to have seen this person during Lin Yan's confrontation with the bad boss, but because when they came, Ogata Ikanzai they left Liangshanpo a long time ago, so they didn't understand it, they just heard some information from a few people who knew it. In the past, Ogata Shinsai almost became a disciple of Ryoyama Tamari, but Elder said that there was a fierce light in his eyes, so he rejected him. Later, in a competition, he missed and killed someone and stepped into Shiradao. Quote, I'm afraid that Elder will take Kenichi to make a choice for Kenichi. Now he is standing at a dangerous intersection. If something goes wrong, the Shirahama Kenichi that we used to be familiar with will disappear. Feeling the atmosphere at the scene becoming more and more depressing, the faces of the experts were almost full of serious words. Mayu swallowed her saliva in fright, and then said tremblingly, Isn't Grandpa here? Even if something goes wrong, Grandpa will have let's do it. Hearing Miyu's opening, the atmosphere on the scene suddenly changed, and Chuyu at Chiakoshi Temple also showed a smile. That's right, after all, Elder is also there. I think someone as strong as him will definitely consider a solution. When the problem is solved, the experts will do their own things. They are now waiting for Johnny to come back to Liangshanpo. As for Lin Yan, he is already strong enough, and if he is reborn, I am afraid that these masters will no longer be opponents. After a few hours of cars and trams, Shirahama Kenichi was led by Elder, and Lin Yan followed Elder and moved quickly through the forest. Ignoring the yelling Shirahama Kenichi along the way, the three finally stopped after a few hours of travel and came to the center of the forest. Dark Valley, here it is. When he arrived at the destination, Elder would be pulled all the way by him, and Shirahama Kenichi, who was swaying in the air about to lose himself, dropped down. Seeing this, Lin Yan also put down his luggage. After breathing the air in the forest, Lin Yan could feel that his cells even became more active. Elder, this place is pretty good. Hearing Lin Yan's praise, Elder also laughed proudly. Dark Valley is an undeveloped wild forest, so the air is quite thick. Practice here can not only speed up recovery from injuries, but also focus on concentration. So since a long time ago, many martial artists have come to practice here, which is equivalent to the sacred land of Japanese martial artists. Really? Then why didn't we see anyone on the way? Shirahama Kenichi finally came back to his senses. After hearing Elder said that this place was quite famous, he asked his own doubts. Hearing Shirahama Kenichi's question, Elder grinned and threatened in a low tone, Of course it's because it's too dangerous here. So martial artists who come here, those who are not good at learning skills, are all given by the environment here, excluded. Seeing Shirahama Kenichi trembling with fright by himself, Elder laughed happily. After a while, I glanced at the two Liang Shanbo disciples, mainly Johnny, and began to say sternly, Now, let's start the special training. At Elder's request, Lin Yan and Shirahama Kenichi could not use martial arts in this forest, and could only rely on their physical fitness. Moreover, because the food needs to be found now, and he can only eat his own early, so Kenichi Shirahama is miserable. Oh, Elder, Lin Yan, can't you really give me something to eat? Xiao Jian, this is not good, this is also a part of cultivation. Xiao Yan, you are not allowed to help him. Kenichi, you also saw that, Elder doesn't allow me to help you, so I can only rely on you. Come on, I believe you. With a thumbs up to Shirahama Kenichi for encouragement, Lin Yan picked up his grilled fish and ate a nice bite, while Kenichi could only eat the walnuts he picked up. How come these walnuts are so hard? Oh, this is the specialty ghost walnut here. Not only is the shell hard, but there are very few edible parts. Hearing Elder's prompt, Shirahama Kenichi felt that he had received another heavy blow. He looked at the two people eating righteously while drooling and smashing the walnuts. There was no way. He found this the only food out there. How on earth should this fish be caught? The next day, standing in a small river in the forest, Kenichi Shirahama was still trying hard to catch a fish, but unfortunately, the fish in his hand was swimming so fast that he couldn't catch it at all. After an angry Shirahama tried it for a while, he didn't catch a fish, so he had no choice but to give up. He didn't eat at all yesterday, and wasted a lot of energy in the river. Now he is almost out of energy. The abandoned Shirahama Kenichi sat by the river and looked at Lin Yan who was walking into the river, his eyes revealed envy. I saw Lin Yan bend down, his whole body motionless. When the fish in the river swam to his side, he quickly waved his hand, and he threw a fish directly onto the shore. Oh, if only I had Lin Yan's technology, I really want to eat fish. No, I can't think about it, I'll continue to pick up some walnuts to eat, otherwise I will be hungry again tonight. Suffocating the desire for fish in his heart, Kenichi Shirahama walked into the wood next to him with a sad face, and began to find the walnuts on the ground. A few days passed slowly, and Kenichi Shirahama was hungry and thin. He couldn't help feeling sad when he looked at the two people eating fruit. Why can you find fruits, but I can only find walnuts? Shirahama Kenichi, who was already starving, was about to explode, and looked at Elder and Lin Yan enviously. Hearing Kenichi Shirahama's roar, Elder stopped his movements, then turned to look at him. Xiaojian, the food in this forest is still quite abundant, you need to observe more, otherwise, you will have to eat walnuts next. The frustrated Shirahama Kenichi didn't want to stay here watching these two unkind guys eat, dragging his hungry body into the forest again. Strange, have I picked up all the walnuts around here? No walnuts can be found nearby, Shirahama Johnny can go further out. Hearing Elder said that there are still bears in the forest, he must be careful. As he went deeper and deeper into the forest, Kenichi Shirahama picked up a lot of walnuts, but because he was too far away, he couldn't find the direction to go back. It's over, I'm lost. Kenichi Shirahama, with a dumb face, can only take his luck now. He has no idea which direction their previous stronghold was in, and now he can only choose one direction to go. After walking for a while, Kenichi Shirahama finally walked out of the forest, and then he was stunned. There was a waterfall in front of him. Although it was small, it was not the point. The point was that there was a wooden house under the waterfall. Is anyone there? I pushed open the door of the wooden house, probably because it was located deep in the mountains and the house was not locked. I stretched my head and looked inside and found that there was no one in the house. After walking into the house, Kenichi Shirahama realized that the house was quite weird, except for the bed and table, surrounded by various stone statues of Jizo, which made him subconsciously frightened. Is there something, young boy? Hearing a voice behind him, Shirahama Kenichi's heart almost jumped out. Just as he was about to look back and see if it was a ghost or a man, he suddenly fainted. What? After being in a coma for a while, Kenichi Shirahama finally woke up. After sitting up, he found himself lying on the bed of that weird wooden house. When he was confused, a white-haired man with a single ponytail appeared at the door. You woke up, I took a look, you should be too hungry, come, I will cook you some food. As a result, Shirahama Kenichi of the food smelled the scent, and immediately began to gobble it up. After eating a bowl, he subconsciously said another bowl. The white-haired man did not refuse, and smiled and gave him another bowl. Well, my name is Kenichi Shirahama, I came here to practice, how about you? Oh, my name is Ogata Isshinsai, and I live in seclusion here now. After eating and drinking, Shirahama Kenichi finished himself for a while, and Ogata Ikanzai also smiled back. Seeing the gentle smile on Ogata Ikanzai's face, Shirahama Kenichi felt that he was a good person. In the distance, both Elder and Lin Yan stood on the top of the tree, looking at the location where Kenichi Shirahama was now. Lin Yan actually did not expect that Ogata Ikujisai would still return after he fought with a Samia dragon fight. Here it is. What should I do if I fail? Although it was Elder arranged for Kenichi Shirahama to meet Ogata Ikujisai, Elder began to worry again after he did encounter it. He was afraid that Kenichi Shirahama would really follow Ogata Ikujisai on the Shira Road. That was a big blow. Seeing the worry on Elder's face squatting on the top of the tree, Lin Yan's mouth twitched, and he looked in the direction of Kenichi Shirahama and said, I think Kenichi will succeed. I believe he will not step on Shira Road. So, Elder, you should believe in Kenichi too. That's right, alas, now I can only look at Xiaojian himself. Xiaoyan, let's start too, it belongs to your special training. I see, Elder. Finally, he glanced at the direction where Baben Kenichi was, and after praying for Kenichi, Lin Yan followed Elder to conduct special training that belonged to him. In the next few days, Shirahama Kenichi lived at Ogata Ikujisai. At least with his help, Kenichi no longer needs to be hungry. While helping Ogata Ikumisai with housework, Kenichi was also training herself silently. Seeing such self-disciplined Kenichi Shirahama, the smile on Ogata Ikumisai's face became more and more obvious. On the other hand, Lin Yan also began to follow Elder to learn the various moves of Fengguan Temple. Although this is Elder's lifelong summary, but Lin Yan's talent is too strong. Basically, he can learn the moves taught by Elder after a period of time. Looking at Lin Yan while practicing, Elder is also a little autistic. After all, his lifelong martial arts summary may soon be hollowed out by his favorite disciple. I don't know how Kenichi is now. I think Ogata Ikujisai will not attack him, right? Facing Lin Yan's question, Elder took a bite of the grilled fish, and replied vaguely, there should be no problem. The guy Ogata is here not only to repent, but also to suppress his unconscious killing intent, so he doesn't all take a shot at Xiaojian. Although that was the case, Elder was actually worried about the situation there. At this time, Shirahama Kenichi, because he had forgotten the way back, had never seen Elder or Lin Yan come to him, so he could only temporarily live with Ogata Ikujisai. Fortunately, he didn't know that Ogata Ikensai was the master of Asamiya Ryodo, and because Ogata was very gentle here, he was completely like a caring big brother. Kenichi Shirahama didn't notice him at all. Danger. Shirahama Kenichi, who was walking by the river, complained that Elder and Lin Yan were not coming to look for him, while searching for food. At this moment, a voice came from a nearby bush. Ah, I know, Elder and Lin Yan will definitely not leave me alone, they must be secretly watching me nearby. With a happy face, Kenichi Shirahama ran over and pushed aside the bushes. Then, he was shocked. Roar! Behind the grass is not the Elder or Lin Yan, he thought. Although it is also very tall, it is a pity that it is not a person, but a bear that is more than 2 meters high. Seeing Shirahama Kenichi ran directly next to him, the bear was also excited. After all, he hadn't eaten anything for a while, and Shirahama Kenichi's appearance was the meat delivered to his door. What? After screaming, Ken Shirahama ran away, and the bear behind him roared and quickly followed. After running for a while, Johnny saw a taller tree in front of him, and he immediately climbed up, and the bear would also climb the tree when he did not expect it. Seeing the bear getting closer and closer to him, Kenichi Shirahama was madly cursing the children's science books, saying that the bear can't climb trees. Kenichi Shirahama, who was receding on the branch, did not notice that the branch could not bear his weight at all. The next second, the branch broke and he fell directly from the tree. Not good. Kenichi Shirahama fell from the tree before he woke up. The starving bear had already rushed towards him. When he concentrated, the bear had already arrived in front of him. At this moment, Shirahama Kenichi's heart was saying goodbye to his own family and everyone in Liang Shanbo. There was no way, he had no time to escape at this distance, and he did not have the fighting power to defeat an adult bear. Drink. Count down to 4, 3, 2, 1. Just as he was waiting for death to come, a figure appeared in front of him, and with a loud shout, the bear that lunged at Shirahama Kenichi was directly killed by his assassination. Seeing this scene in front of him, Kenichi Shirahama was stunned. Although he guessed that life is here, Ogata Ikumisai must be a martial artist, but he did not expect him to be so strong, and that he was so stunned just now. The violent killing intent really shocked him. Are you okay, Kenichi? Ogata Ikumisai, with bear blood still on his face, turned to look at Kenichi Shirahama. Although there was a smile on his face, Kenichi Shirahama felt a little cold inexplicably. Looking at Ogata Ikanzai, Kenichi Shirahama suddenly thought of something. He had seen many Jizo statues in the wooden house of Ogata Ikanzai. It seemed strange, but he didn't think much about it. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. Legend has it that Miyamoto Musashi would confess in the temple after killing someone. Isn't Ogata Ikujisai's behavior very similar to this? What's wrong with Kenichi? No, nothing. Seeing Shirahama Kenichi in a daze, Ogata Ikensai asked kindly, and disrupted Shirahama Kenichi's thoughts. He didn't think any more, and followed Ogata Ikanzai back. Near the wooden house. The two of them sat by the waterfall, eating the bear that Ogata Ikensai had just killed. Ken Shirahama ate while wandering, watching Kenichi Shirahama, who was not guarding the house, and Ogata Ikensai sensed his faltering. Kenichi, you are an interesting person, your foundation is quite solid, and you have learned a variety of martial arts, you are a piece of uncut jade. Apart from that kid, you are the first person I want to accept as a disciple. How, do you want to become my disciple? I can make you stronger, even the strongest in the world. Ogata Isshinsai, who knew that he was almost exposed, also showed his true face. He had long known that Kenichi was brought by Elder of Liang Shanbo. I am afraid that he wanted Kenichi to choose which martial artist he became. However, he didn't want to act according to the old man's thoughts. In addition to defeating Lin Yan, who was his disciple, Kenichi Shirahama, was also a piece of jade. After his training, he would definitely grow into a top expert. However, what Ogata Ikemisai didn't expect was that Kenichi Shirahama rejected him. No, I already have a master. Even if I want to worship a new master, I should get their consent. More importantly, Mr. Ogata, your fists are full of murderous intent, and I don't like your fists. Ogata Kazinsai smiled happily, and said to Kenichi Shirahama, Kenichi, martial arts things are only meaningful when they are born and die. Those subordinates are merciful. You guys don't deserve to be a martial artist at all. No, martial arts are not used to kill people. Martial arts are used to protect your important things. If it is only to kill people, is there any difference between martial arts and violence? Kenichi, you are really a funny guy. Just follow you. Since you don't want to worship me as a teacher, then leave here. It just so happens, I already guessed where your campsite is. Originally thought that he would be beaten, Kenichi Shirahama found that Ogata Ikemisai was not angry, but after knowing that Kenichi Shirahama did not want to be a disciple of Own, he started to drive him away. Thank you for taking care of Mr. Ogata during this time. After bowing to Ogata Iskinsai, and saying goodbye to him, Kenichi Shirahama left in the direction he told Own. Old man, it's really irritating to use me to test his disciples. Seeing Kenichi Shirahama's departure, Ogata Ikemisai's eyes were quite complicated. After a while, the gentleness on his face disappeared, and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. It seems that I can't stay here anymore, there seems to be a lot of interesting people out there. Before that, how about playing with me first? Quote, just as Ogata Ikanzai was about to turn around and return to the wooden house, a voice came from above the waterfall. Hearing these words, Ogata Ikanzai looked upward with interest. It turned out to be you, that kid named Lin Yan. I guessed that the old man would definitely bring you here, but even if you are now at the top level, are you sure you can beat me? Feeling the breath of Lin Yan, Ogata Isshinsai was also a little surprised. Only a few months later, Lin Yan broke through from the disciple level to the master level. This talent is really surprising. Is it okay? I only know after hitting it. After saying that, Lin Yan jumped from the top of the waterfall, smashed a hole directly in the ground, and then looked directly at Ogata Ikanzai. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for helping Kenichi strengthen his own path. You're welcome, although I have already left. I was at least a member of Liang Shanpo in the past, but it's a pity that the kid didn't want to follow me. Looking at Lin Yan in front of him, it was a pity that Ogata Isshinsai, with Lin Yan's talent, would surely become the strongest in the world under his guidance and rule the entire martial arts world. It's a pity that Lin Yan has become a master, and his inner firmness is not very comparable, and it is probably impossible to subdue it. On Lin Yan's side, he looked calm on the surface, but he was actually a little nervous. After all, he had just learned Elder's Fenglinji style and he was not yet proficient. As a result, Elder suddenly told him that he wanted him to come and be a god with Ogata. Jai had a fight, and he was shocked. Well, since Xiaoyan, you have almost learned my Fenglinji style martial arts, then you can go to fight with that Ogata to test yourself. Thinking of Elder's request, Lin Yan sighed and looked at the opposite Ogata Ikanzai, slowly releasing his aura. Feeling the momentum that Lin Yan was already preparing for a battle, the smile on the corner of Ogata Isshinsai's mouth became more and more obvious, until finally, he laughed and began to exude his murderous intent unscrupulously. Bring it on! Ogata Isshinsai sprinted directly to Lin Yan's side with red eyes, using the countdown jab that had just killed the bear. Similarly, Lin Yan used the same trick to get it right. Fingertips to fingertips, a powerful shock wave erupted from among them, blasting the stones under their feet directly, and even the river not far away blew up a burst of water. When a single blow failed, Ogata Ikemisai began to punch again quickly. Lin Yan also gathered the ripples in his hands, and used the technique of ripples to sprint against Ogata Ikemisai. The two moved and fought, not only smashing the wooden house where Ogata Ikemisai lived, but even hitting them directly into the forest. A single blow could break a tree that was thick. The birds were startled for a while. Below the river, Shirahama Kenichi, who was going down the river, finally found their campsite. He also saw Elder, but he didn't find Lin Yan, and Elder kept looking at the direction he was coming. His face was quite serious. Elder, I'm back. Oh, Xiaojian, I'll be fine when I come back. Elder answered Shirahama Kenichi completely indifferently. The solemnity on his face did not dissipate at all. Seeing Elder like this, Shirahama Kenichi couldn't figure it out at all. He only returned after knowing that Lin Yan hadn't been found after turning around. Arrived at Elder's side. Well, where did Lin Yan go? I gave Xiao Yan a goal, and he went to complete his goal. Lin Yan turned his head to avoid him with a casual punch by Ogata Ikanzai, but the tree behind him was directly blasted out of a big hole by the fist, and then fell overwhelmed. Yes, it's only been a few months. You have grown to this point. I should have taken you away forcibly. It's a pity that your talent stays in Liangshanbo. No, I think staying in Liangshanbo can give full play to my talents. After all, there are so many top talents to accompany me to train. You were right, Mr. Boxing Saint. You are really not cute. Although Ogata Ikujisai smiled happily, his men had no mercy at all. If Lin Yan had not been able to heal his injuries with ripples in his body, I am afraid that he would have been severely injured by Ogata Ikujisai a long time ago. However, as the battle continued, Lin Yan also began to feel a little weak. After all, he has not yet reached the level of a top expert, and it is already very good to be able to compete with Ogata Ikujisai to such a point. What's wrong? Your reaction slowed down. Another punch blasted directly at Lin Yan's head. Although he was avoided, Ogata Ikujisai's fist wind still cut Lin Yan's face out of a wound. Lin Yan, who was so retreated for a certain distance, left the attack range of Ogata Ikanzai, and watching Ogata Ikanzai stopped, he began to adjust his own breathing. I probably only have a chance to win with one punch. Condensing all of my ripples on my right hand and hitting directly with the blasting technique, even Ogata Ikumisai would be unbearable, but how can I hit? He. Like Lin Yan, Ogata Yishenzai, who was also trained by Liang Shanbo, had basically no shortcomings in physical fitness. Even though the upper limit may not be as high as Lin Yan has not yet reached that level. Lin Yan's mood became heavier and began to be cautious, trying to find a chance to kill with one blow, but Ogata Ikumisai would not care so much. This battle has already aroused his fierceness. He is now I just want to hit Lin Yan and taste the blood of a master. Lin Yan slowly retreated to the side of a big tree that was at least a few hundred years old. This big tree as thick as a few people is the thickest tree he can see around here. It can bring Lin Yan hope. Don't keep going back. Come and fight head on. Ogata Ikanzai yelled, and then hurriedly approached Lin Yan. Lin Yan didn't dare to be careless and set his posture to prepare for defense. Following Ogata Ikujisai's countdown jab, attacking Lin Yan hit his own attention, and finally found Ogata Ikujisai's fist, and then stretched out his hand to push away his attack. Leading his jab to the big tree. Ogata Ikumisai, who was controlled by the killing intent, did not notice, and directly punched the jab into the tree, because the tree was too thick. Although the impact exploded a big hole, Ogata Ikumisai was momentary. He couldn't take his hand out, and there was a brief stiffness. It's now. I'm flowing booming ripples walking and hitting. Lin Yan, who had been waiting for this opportunity, gathered all the ripples in his body, and then fiercely hit Ogata Ikujisai. When Lin Yan's continuous attacks were too late to respond, Ogata Ikujisai was directly killed. It flew out so much that it broke several big trees. Ahem, I didn't expect that I would lose. Struggling to sit up, Ogata Isshinsai seemed to have recovered his calm, feeling the injury on his body, sighed with a bitter smile, and then looked at Lin Yan, who was panting. Come on, boy, this is your victory, come and take my life. Ogata Isshinsai opened his hands, waiting for Lin Yan to take his life. As a loser, as a martial artist, Ogata Isshinsai was ready to be killed, but after waiting for a while, Lin Yan didn't move at all. Why didn't you kill me? I'm a disciple of Liang Shanbo, fist of no kill, so I won't kill you. I won the competition this time. I went back to meet with Elder. You are here to fend for yourself. You will regret it, I will kill you next time. Ogata Isshinsai was quite angry, but Lin Yan directly ignored his roar, waved his back to him and walked into the forest until he disappeared from Ogata Isshinsai's vision. Ding! Congratulations to the host for defeating Fist Saint Ogata Ikanzai and gaining 5,000 destiny points and 5,000 points. After hearing the system prompt, Lin Yan nodded in satisfaction. He just copied a wave of Ogata Ikanzai's talent. Although it requires 1,000 destiny points, it is not too profitable compared to what he paid. Slowly walked to their campsite, and after seeing Elder and Shirahama Kenichi, waved at them. And seeing Lin Yan coming back safely, Elder finally let go of his heart. The dignity on his face disappeared suddenly, touching his beard and then showing a hearty smile again. Unexpectedly, Xiaoyan, you actually defeated that guy Ogata. After Lin Yan told Elder about the result of the duel between him and Ogata Isshinsai, Elder looked at Lin Yan in surprise. He really didn't expect Lin Yan to win. It's just a fluke. If I fight him again, I don't think I can win, but after a while, I won't be afraid of him. Ha ha ha, that's good. They didn't talk too much about this topic. Elder and Lin Yan said a few words and it was over. In the next few days, Elder and Lin Yan began to train Shirahama Kenichi to dominate the air circle. Kenichi Shirahama, who has determined to follow the path of a quiet martial artist, has strengthened his heart, and the training of the underworld over the past 6 months has finally come to fruition. At the beginning, I couldn't be familiar with the small movements that Elder did to him, and then slowly I could capture Elder's actions, and Kenichi's dominance circle began to slowly get started. Of course, according to Elder's words, it is not enough to really practice the sky dominance circle. Afterwards, various extremely dangerous trainings also made Shirahama Kenichi miserable, while Lin Yan watched from the sidelines, and then became familiar with Fenglinsi's fighting skills. However, with the gradual progress of Shirahama Kenichi's practice of emptying the circle, he can finally catch fish from the river. No need to eat walnuts every day, Shirahama Kenichi can't help but tears flowing. Time slowly passed, Liang Shanbo at this time. Grandpa and the others have been out for more than half a month, and I don't know how Yan is doing now. When I asked them for leave, Mr. Ernst and Young has been asking for a long time. Mei Yu, who was doing housework, sighed from time to time. After all, Lin Yan and the others had been away for a long time, and Liang Shanbo had also become deserted, which made the bustling Mei Yu who had finally become accustomed to here become lonely again. Fortunately, Shirahama Suika will come here from time to time. Although she always calls her Big Cow, and because she didn't see Shirahama Kenichi, her mood is not very good, but fortunately it also adds to Liangshanpo a little popularity. It was Ma Lianhua who made Mei Yu even more angry. He ran over to ask about Lin Yan's whereabouts from time to time. After discovering that Lin Yan hadn't come back, she ridiculed her. It was obvious that she knew Lin Yan first, so why Ma Lianhua was in the palace? Momentum. It really made Mei Yu so angry. Just when Mei Yu was thinking about it, Liang Shanbo's door was pushed open, and when he noticed the sound of opening the door, Apacha quickly ran over. We're back. Appa, you are finally back. Apacha misses you so much. Apacha, who rushed to the gate, found that the person was a special training trio, and he seemed quite happy. With the return of Lin Yan and others, Liang Shanbo became lively again. Miu, have you missed me during this time? Mei Yu, who returned to Liangshanpo, gave Mei Yu a big hug when she saw Mei Yu's first sight again, and her whole face turned red from shame. After trying and not struggling away, Mei Yu said in a low voice, I want to, so let me go quickly, Yan. Hearing Mei Yu's shy answer, Lin Yan let go of Mei Yu with a smile, and also got Mei Yu's eyes. However, Miu was relieved to see that a few people came back safely. After all, after listening to Kyu Temple Chuyu said so seriously, it is normal to be worried. After returning, Lin Yan and Shirahama Kenichi took a good rest. After all, after spending so long in the wild forest, Lin Yan was okay, and Shirahama Kenichi was really exhausted physically and mentally. Work. On this day, Lin Yan and Shirahama Kenichi discovered that the police had approached Nigui Jersu. Shirahama Kenichi thought that Nigui Jersu had committed something. After careful inquiry, they found out that the police had a job to find him. I don't have a fixed income like Chu Yu and Lao Ma, referring to their clinic, and I don't like the feeling of making money slowly, I like the kind that makes a lot of money at a time. After listening to Nigui Jersu's words, Lin Yan was quite speechless. Isn't this just like a mercenary? When encountering some problems that are not convenient for the police to solve, they use high amounts of money to attract experts to help them solve them. Japanese police are also quite good at playing. Then Master Nigui, what are you going to do? It seems to be protecting someone. I don't care about the specifics. However, This time the opponent is an interesting guy, Lin Yan and Kenichi. Would you two accompany me to meet the world? Lin Yan and Shirahama looked at each other. Shirahama Kenichi seemed a little scared, as if he didn't want to go. After all, in his opinion, this kind of action would definitely be dangerous, but Lin Yan didn't wait for him to refuse. Agreed to Nigui Jirju's words. After knowing that Lin Yan and Shirahama Kenichi were going to work with Nigui Jirsu, the talents of Liangshanpo prepared 2 sets of Liangshanpo special martial arts uniforms for them. The upper body is a short-sleeved GI that combines judo and karate, and the lower body is kung fu pants from the Chinese side. There is also a bandage for Muay Thai on the hands. The clothes also wear an inner armor, which was specially ordered by the master Kasaka Toshigure, can block bullets. Lin Yan's chest was rusted with Disciple Number 1, and the one with Johnny was Disciple No. 2. To be honest, the clothes are pretty good, and they seem to have the aura of the strongest disciple, Sudo. Why prepare an inner armor that can block bullets? Is this action so dangerous? Unlike Lin Yan's calm face, when Kenichi Shirahama knew that the own inner armor had the function of blocking bullets, he instinctively told him that the masters would not prepare useless things, so he had to face it this time. The enemy of the gun. Don't be afraid, Kenichi boy, this time I will only take you to meet the world, and will not put you in any danger. After all, I am still here, ha ha ha. Seeing Shirahama Kenichi's fear, Nigui Jirju patted Kenichi's head with a big hand, and then comforted him. Although Kenichi still looked worried, he did not say that he would not go. Sitting on a motorcycle, the one with a side fight, the 3 of them arrived at a mansion, and then the 3 of them were surrounded by the mansion's bodyguards at the door. Looking at the machete in their hands, Kenichi Shirahama swallowed fiercely, and then couldn't help but vomit. Aren't we here to be bodyguards? What's the situation? Master Nigui, you are not with you. Do they explain? Seeing the angry look of the bodyguards surrounding the 3 of them, Nigui Jirsu smiled and said to Kenichi, it seems that there is a way out of what I expected, but it's a big trouble to explain. Let's defeat them directly. That will only make things more troublesome. Shirahama Kenichi's wailing was useless, and the bodyguard with a machete was really surprised and upset when he discovered that the men specially invited by his boss were 3 empty-handed martial artists. As long as you get rid of you here, we can prove our usefulness, and they will be useless. A big bald man directly lifted the knife and slashed towards Nigui Jirsu. Several others watched their companions start their hands, and they also slashed towards the 3 of them. Japanese, try our great. A bodyguard slashed towards Shirahama Kenichi, shocked Kenichi, and didn't have time to react for a while, but Lin Yan was right beside him and knocked the bodyguard to the ground with a punch. When Shirahama Kenichi reacted, the bodyguards who had taken the shot had been brought down by Nigui Jirsu and Lin Yan, and they did not pose any threat at all. Papa Papa. With a round of applause, Lin Yan and the 3 looked towards the interior of the mansion. At this time, a blonde middle-aged man with his secretary and several bodyguards was walking towards the 3. Wonderful, worthy of being a karate master with hundreds of fights, invincible. Ha, you, a well-known weapon merchant, will come to Japan, and after you come to Japan, you don't need a gun to use a knife instead of a gun. Wayne Gaosho. Seeing Nigui Jirju's knife directly snapped, Wayne didn't care, and said to Nigui Jirsu jokingly, after all, I am a law-abiding businessman and not a mafia. Of course, I have to go to the countryside and do what I have to say. Later, Lin Yan and the 3 followed Wayne into the mansion. According to him, this was a hiding place specially prepared for him by the Japanese government. Protect him during the day's journey. The Japanese government did not dare to protect him openly, but did not dare to let this famous weapon merchant die on their territory, so it entrusted the expert Nigui Jirsu to come over. It is said that it was Christopher who was going to assassinate you. This is true. Hearing Nigui Jirju's name, Wayne also showed a somewhat scared expression, and said solemnly, although it's just a rumor, but my subordinates really worry me. Who is Christopher? Mo Shin Shirahama Kenichi asked towards Nigui Jirsu, and Lin Yan on one side also turned his attention to Nigui Jirsu. Christopher Ekrel is a professional killer who does not use weapons. The martial art he uses is French leg strike. It originated from the French fighting technique of ancient Greek gladiatorial competitions. Its characteristic is that it has a lot of foot skills. Although there is also a sporty, French boxing technique, that prohibits elbow strikes and throwing techniques in modern times. The guy used French leg strikes for the purpose of destroying the human body. Quote, hearing Nigui Jirsu talking about the enemy so badly, Shirahama Kenichi was even more scared at this time, but he thought that Nigui Jirsu was in front of him, and Lin Yan was also beside him, so he calmed down. Although Wayne Gaosho still attaches great importance to Nigui Jirsu, his bodyguards do not believe that a little white face can threaten them. They also have a look of disdain for the Nigui Jirsu, and they are then severely treated by Nigui Jirsu. A few words in reply. Just when there was a quarrel, the secretary said to Nigui Jirsu, "Now, let's ask Master Nigui to start your work. Please protect Mr. Gao Shu to the hotel where you are negotiating. Well, I will send him to the destination regardless of life or death, but relatively, you have to listen to my arrangements." Afterwards, Nigui Jirsu took the client and his secretary to take the tram to the destination, while the bodyguards on the other side drove to the destination with a dummy. That, Master Inverse Ghost, can you please take care of the surrounding situation? Wayne Gaosho looked worried, and the female secretary on the side was also speechless. It is too messy to let Mr. Gao Shu take the tram. Can this really protect Mr. Gao Shu? Ha ha ha, rest assured, for a master like me, murderous intent within 5 meters, I can perceive that Christopher can't hurt him. Nigui Jirsu laughed and didn't take their worries to heart at all. After all, he was not afraid of Christopher, not to mention that there was a very weak Liang Shanbo's chief disciple Lin Yan here. To a master still afraid of Christopher. The bodyguard who drove on the other side was attacked. When passing a flyover, Christopher fell directly from the sky and kicked the front window of the car. The bodyguard in the car hurriedly stopped and took out a crossbow and shot directly at him. In this close-range situation, the power of the crossbow bolt is not weaker than that of the firearm. Unfortunately, Christopher bit the cut-out crossbow bolt directly with his teeth, and kicked the bodyguard out of the car with one kick. Christopher, who went to check the target's situation, discovered that there was a dummy in the back seat of the car. Just as he was about to ask the bodyguard in the car, he heard the bodyguards exchange and heard a familiar name from their words. So, is it Jirsu? As expected, Jirsu can make such an unexpected arrangement. As the car exploded, Christopher disappeared in place, and rushed to the tram where Nigui Jirsu was located according to the news. The dark horse has appeared, ha ha ha. Be serious. Nigui Jirsu, who was holding the newspaper and watching the news about the horse racing, had a look of excitement. The few people next to him were speechless. Lin Yan's mouth twitched and looked at this unreliable bodyguard. However, at this moment, the atmosphere in the entire train changed, and Shirahama Kenichi also noticed something was wrong, but he could only feel a strong pressure, but did not know the specific location. Lin Yan found out, and took a concealed glance in Christopher's direction. A smile came up at the corner of his mouth. Ah, I almost forgot, Christopher, every time he acts, he asks the woman who is traveling with him to use the same perfume as himself. His preparation is very thoughtful, and he really has his style. You were right, female spy. When the atmosphere was quite serious, Nigui Jirsu suddenly smiled and said to the female secretary next to Wayne Gaosho. She was startled, and then she realized that her identity had been exposed, so she directly kicked at Wayne. Unfortunately, even if the bayonet is prepared on the tip of the toe, it is only a little away from Wayne. His face was pale with fright, but Wayne was not hurt in the end. Her foot was directly grasped firmly by Nigui Jirsu, and then she slammed it back, causing her to retreat for a certain distance. Hee, you are as expected of Jirsu, you are really beyond my expectation. When the female assassin retreated, Christopher finally approached. He ignored Wayne's goal, but instead attacked the rebellious ghost with a look of excitement. Hey, did you know that you can't find someone to fight in a tram? Nigui Jirsu's face greeted Christopher's attack with an ugly face, and Christopher smiled happily. Jirsu, your karate can't be performed in a narrow place, otherwise it will hurt the people next to you. But my French leg strike is different. It is a martial art that can attack from any angle. Nigui Jirsu followed Christopher's kick with an ugly look, while protecting the ordinary people in the tram from being attacked. After all, ordinary people who were hit by Christopher would have half their lives if they didn't die. Amidst the screams of the passengers inside the tram, the two fought on offense and on defense, while Kenichi Shirahama played against the female assassin. Lin Yan thought that the female assassin was just good. You can temper Johnny. Although Kenichi does not hit women, he should still be able to protect Wayne under the attack of the female assassin. Thanks to the inner armor he wears, it destroys the most lethal toe bayonet on the female assassin, so Kenichi can persevere here. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.